We took the trophy home for the import guys. Where was White Rice? Nowhere to be found. They qualified.
Damn.
They packed their up and went home.
So you think those guys are holding the torch for 2J right now?
They don't have one of these. And by that, I mean this chair that I'm sitting in right now.
I'm looking down like, wait, what are you talking about?
Do you want them representing the 2JZ? I want to see the best representing in the 2JZ field.
To beat the RB. Because you guys are nervous that the RB
We're not
probably...
nervous.
No, it just seems like there's nervous energy. I don't know.
If the fans want to see the best 2JZ guy race, I would put something together, pro import race Big Mac.
I think Big Mac will be down to run it.
He may be scared.
I don't think any RB is scared of no 2J right now. In 2018, there was an incident. It was on the news and so on. What happened in that incident in 2018? Welcome back to another episode of the Street Alpha Podcast. I'm your host, Tukes, and today we are back in Florida, which is now my new hometown. So we had the pleasure to stop by Titan Motorsports, and we're here with Nero, right?
Yep.
So as you guys know, we're a big import podcast, and we're slowly making our way to the domestic side. However, I've been inspired growing up with a lot of the 2Js, Hondas, just imports in general. So I figured, if we're going to have a 2J podcast, why not have it with Nero of Titan, right? So if you guys don't know or aren't familiar, which I'm pretty sure you guys are, Nero and Titan Motorsports have been responsible for some of the world's fastest and quickest Supras, right?
Yep.
A lot of races with TX2K, FL2K, World Cup, NHRA, Sport Compact,
ADRL.
Pretty much records in every single big event that you guys can go see drag racing for the most part, right? Mm-hmm. So if there's anybody to speak about this platform in general, it should be Nero, Titan Motorsports. So we're going to get into a lot of the history of Titan, which we have to speak about because it's very important. And this car behind us, which is the MK4 Supra, which is the legendary Supra that most of you guys have probably watched if you guys aren't the 2Js growing up, going to drag racing events and so on. This is the car that probably inspired so many people across the world. So before we begin, let's give a round of applause for Nero, Titan Motorsports. I know, I forgot to tell you. I always do the clap thing, so. Long clap, right? So, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I came here last year for a little tour. Ryan was giving me the tour on the shop. I don't think you were here. I think your brother was here, actually. Yep. Yeah. So, I had the pleasure to do another tour today with you. You guys can check that out. If you guys are members, you guys can check that out. So, we went around the shop, saw what the shop is about, and how it's grown into the business today, which is kind of crazy that you guys do a lot of parts. Like you guys sell a lot of parts to a lot of people all over the world, which is pretty interesting because I personally, just being honest, I've never purchased anything from Titan because I guess you guys don't do RB stuff, right? So of course you guys obviously do 2J stuff. You guys do have some RB stuff here,
Yep.
But primarily your focus seems to be more, I guess I would say not so much 2J, but more import stuff, right?
Correct. Yeah. Import, Sport Compact is our core, and a lot of people don't know us for distribution, but that is like actually the core of the business here. On social media, we show a little bit of that, but truth be told, parts and boxes are not sexy. So we don't, we're not sitting there all day long on social, showing like, hey, another shipment came in of blah, blah, blah,
Right.
weld wheels or precision turbos. But I mean, we do stock that stuff, so that customers can get it quickly, just like us, we want our parts as soon as possible.
100%.
So that's why, that's the core of the business and what we mainly do. What you'll see on social is, a lot of the stuff that we build in the workshop, some of the parts that we build, some of the racing that we do. And truth be told, that's our passion, right? The reason that I got into this business was to basically fund the race car, this car right here, keep it on track, buy race fuel for it, to go to events. That was the whole point of getting into selling parts. It was never meant to be a business that it is today or this big. It was meant to just, fund it to be able to go racing. Now, obviously, racing is a lot more expensive than it used to be, so we have to sell a lot more parts.
Right.
And it's become a career.
Most people who are into cars, drag racing, or even street racing, right? A lot of these people have careers, they have regular jobs, and then they have those jobs to fund the hobby, right? So your job was IT?
Yeah, so, when I was in college, my goal was to go into IT. I got a degree in management information systems.
Okay.
So my goal was to actually do e-commerce, which is funny because Titan does e-commerce now. It's obviously we're running the business of doing it versus me, maybe creating websites or being just the IT infrastructure portion of it. I'm doing the whole business.
With the IT stuff, right? Every time I think of IT, I think about those guys. They have a good living. Salary is probably pretty good, right? So was majority of that money used to start the business, or was it more so to fund the car?
So when I was getting my degree, I used to do some work on part-time doing computer stuff, which actually helped me get the car.
Okay.
And then that later transitioned into starting to sell parts, which I had a business infrastructure at that point, your printers, your credit card machines and whatnot. And so it kind of slowly, as that industry changed in the late 90s, I kind of just fell into selling car parts as a favor to a friend. Was like, okay, let me do this. And before you know it, it snowballed into, building Supras and selling more and more parts all around the world. It didn't really need a lot of funding, so I started the business out of my parents' house. So I was in college, so I lived at home, like a lot of young kids do today.
Yeah.
And was going through college and got into cars, was into cars, but got into the racing side of the Supra. Was going out street racing every Saturday night. And then just kind of fell into it over time, got more and more into modifying the car, learned about driving the car. And then before you know it, I'm selling parts on the side because I'm like, now I want to start taking this car to some of these bigger events. Back then in Palm Beach, there was a Drag Wars event that was massive. It's kind of similar to what Fast and Furious showed in the first one. Yep. So it was very similar. I mean, that event was phenomenal. We had, you had Vinny 10, would come down. Would come down there. You had the Porsche Eddie Bello doing the wheel stands.
Yeah, Eddie Bello's in Florida now too.
Yeah. So I mean, like when I went to those first events, it was a game changer.
Yeah.
Watching Eddie Bello unload the car, and just do wheel stand. When he was coming up to run, you ran up to the line just to see the car.
Yeah.
And then you see Vinny 10 would bring his car. I've got pictures from back then of him literally bringing the car on an open trailer all the way from New York down to Florida.
Yeah.
And racing the car, So there were some back then. Those names were huge,
heavy hitters.
And some of them are still heavy hitters, right? And they've stayed in the industry, and so that got me really into it. And so then I was like, man, at that time I just had the car, and I'm like, I wasn't struggling to pay for the car, but it was a stretch to get it.
Okay.
Right. So I was like, I don't have money for a truck, a trailer, drag tires. I need I'm watching these guys. I'm like, I need all the stuff they got.
Yeah.
Right. So, at least on a lower level.
Right.
So I was like, that's why I got to start selling some parts, grind it a little more, but, start, use that money to keep funding the car. Fortunately I lived at home, so there was very few expenses.
Costs are low, yeah.
Yeah. And so almost all the money went into building the car and paying the credit. You're buying the parts on credit cards and paying the credit card bills down and shuffling cards with a 0%.
So in the 90s, what was it about the Supra that made you want to purchase it?
What's funny is the Supra was a huge stretch. So I was really big into Camaros, and then at that point, the LT engine was the engine for the modern Camaro. So I wanted to get a Camaro in 1997, and I'd actually even put money down to get one. The dealership was getting that car from another dealership, and somehow, whatever, how it happens, the car got sold at that other dealership before they transferred it, and so the deal fell apart. Right. And so I got my deposit back, no big deal, blah, blah, blah. And a month or two goes by, I can't find the right car. And then Toyota dropped the retail price of the Toyota Supra from $50,000 for the turbo to $40,000.
Wow.
So when that price drop happened for the new cars, all the used cars came down, obviously, accordingly.
Right.
10 $10,000. And it's similar to the same things happened with a Tesla Plaid, right? Like,
Yep.
you know, I mean, they've depreciated because the manufacturer would give you brand new ones for cheaper
Right.
than the used ones were selling for. So the market, of course, adjusted. So when that adjusted, the hunt came on for the Toyota Supra, and it was definitely a stretch because it was more money still than the Camaro.
Yeah.
Right. A fully loaded Camaro, it was still more money than that. And I think I was trying to spend like 23 grand on the Camaro, which was a stretch. And then the Supra I ended up getting was $26,700. So, and I had negotiated that thing for 3 hours at the dealership.
So, okay. So I didn't even know the Supra was about $50,000, but I'm assuming that was for like a twin turbo, right?
That was a twin turbo, but that for a brand new one. And
Okay.
so in 97, obviously I couldn't afford a new one.
Yeah.
I was already stretching. So I was looking for a good deal on a used one. And I was fortunate enough to have one pop up right down the street. And I was like, I love it. You know, I'm never going to modify it. It's got everything the way I want it. I don't even need to do anything to it. Yeah, that didn't last, but
Of course.
so yep. so we ended up getting it. And back then, like a lot of young adults, I was into car audio. That was big, right? There was no sport compact racing there was not much of it. And I'm going, so we'd always hang out on the street corner, or parking lots. I take my brand new car to the parking lot. And mind you, I'd never had a manual car before. This was my first manual car.
manual.
Right. So I'm just learning just to drive it point A to point B.
Yeah.
Not race it. And I'm out there and it's late night, some Saturday night, like 11 o'clock, maybe 12 o'clock. And I get invited out to the street racing by some Latin guys, right?
Okay.
And so at this time, I'm like, this seems real sketch, right? They're going to the middle of nowhere. These guys want me to come with them. They're like insisting. And I'm like, I'm getting robbed, right? This is not normal.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I didn't go the first time. And the second time, I was like, okay, these guys have some pretty nice cars. This seems intriguing. So the next week, same guys invite me out again.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? What's the worst can happen if I just follow them?
Right.
So, of course, followed cautiously. And we go out in the middle of nowhere, like 20, 30 minutes out of town, middle of nowhere. And I'm like, so when we get there, I start to see what's going on, stay in the car for probably a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Then I get out and I'm like, holy cow, this is like a movie setting. Like, these guys are street racing up and down the road.
You know what year this was roughly?
This is probably right around that 97, 98.
Okay.
And so like literally, streets are lined with cars and people screaming and, the whole thing was going on. And then before you know it, they're like, hey, you want to race? I'm like, sure, I'm like, I don't know what to do, right? I never even launched the car. I didn't even know about launching the car. So my definition of launching the car was like just leaving a stoplight
And go.
normal,
Yeah.
like, 2,000 RPM, slip the clutch a little and just drive off like normal, not launching it. So I had no idea launching was even a thing. So of course, like I pull up there, windows are rolled down initially, and people are screaming, Supra, Supra, in the Latin accent, and it was intoxicating. So I get my ass whooped, of course, because I didn't know how to drive, and I probably did it a second time because it was so intoxicating.
Yeah.
And I'm driving home probably every day, every night. I'm going out just trying to figure out how to drive this thing after that. And then I started going to the races. And before you know it, I'm wanting to follow people home, like race all the way back to their house. Like I'm just getting into it every weekend and still learning to drive. But that's where the mod bug happened. I was like, you know what? I can't drive that great. Like I don't know the shift points and I don't know how to launch the car and all this, but I can make more horsepower.
Right.
So I was like, okay, time to get mods, exhaust, downpipes, whatever, intake, boost controller, all this stuff I'm starting to learn about and get, because, today it's easier. You can learn and ask questions online and learn about,
Way
hey,
easier.
how do I launch the car? How do I foot brake the car? How do I do this? Anything, whether it's safety, performance, mods, any of it. Back then you ask somebody what tire pressure to run and everybody has a different opinion, right? And
It's still kind of like that too when you ask.
It's up, but I mean, you have people who actually
You have more,
know,
yes,
right? Like
now, right.
I'm running Mickey Thompson radial. You can be like, boom, set that at 18 PSI for this tire, this size, this car. I mean, I literally had 10, 15 PSI swing. Some people don't mess with it. Some people run it almost all the way till it's flat, right? Like, and nobody would tell you how to launch the car, how to slip the clutch, how to do anything. So, and especially with a Supra, because I was one of the few that had a Supra that was trying to race it at that point, right? I mean, this wasn't a common car. So if I had a Fox body, it probably would have been easier because I could have asked people. But, you know, and I'm like, hey, turbo cars weren't even that big. Sport Compact wasn't that big. So it's like, how do I launch a Supra? And they're like, you just rev it up and slip the clutch and dump it and then go. And then I don't know, what's the shift points, right? Do I go all the way to red line? Do I, you know, shift at 5,000? Like nobody had an idea. So it was a complete brand new learning experience. I mean, it's great now that you reflect on it because you learned so much about the car, so much about the sport. You know, you didn't just shortcut it to, okay, do this setting, this setting, this setting, and the car just drove away and, you know, you go fast. You actually literally had to learn a lot about the platform.
So now before Fast and Furious and Titan Motorsports, what was it that made the Supra so popular back then? Like, what were you looking up to? What inspired you to get the car, and why did everybody know about it already?
You know, I just thought the car was sexy. It had the wing. I mean, it had the gorgeous wing. The cockpit being, you know, geared cool towards the driver. You know, at that time, I mean, I had options. You know, 300Z was one of the thoughts. Popular option back then. The Integra GSR was one I actually test drove. I wasn't a big front wheel drive fan at that time. You know, being that I wanted a Camaro, I wanted a rear wheel drive car. So the Supra just kind of fit in between. Now, I never thought it was going to be, you know, a monster mod V platform that it is today.
Right.
I just thought it was an awesome car that you would probably was well built from the factory. Like I didn't need to do a lot to it.
The price of that car, well, you said was $50,000, brand new.
Brand new, yep.
Right.
In '96, it was $50,000, and in '97, they did a price drop to $40,000.
Was that considered a lot of money for back then? For a lot. I guess for an import, technically, right? As a Toyota.
I think it was the most expensive Toyota, and you know the reason they did the price drop back then is because the cars weren't selling. I mean, it's funny to...
Funny, it's like this, the Mark V kind of similar. Not saying you can compare the two, but it's the same thing with these cars sometimes.
I mean, with the Mark IV, like literally the dealers, they didn't sell a lot. So if you look at your production numbers in 97, 98, one of the reasons these cars sell for so much is they have some unique colors in those years, but they also had a low production run. You know, now you have a line of people waiting to buy Mark IV Supras, right? It's a classic, right? It's a bucket list car for a lot of people. So, but then because probably it was an expensive Toyota or very expensive Toyota. I mean, compare similar performance to a Camaro. A fully loaded Z28 was, you know, $20,000 to $23,000, and at the time, a similar performing Toyota Supra was $50,000. So I mean, it was a lot of money, and it's probably a ton of money for a Toyota Supra.
So was there any cars in particular? Because for me, growing up, I know the Supra because of Fast and Furious. Before that, were you looking at anybody? Was there anybody that you were looking at? Maybe a magazine or something that you were like, I want to build my Supra to go as fast as this car, or anything of the sort? You
know, like before I got the car, I was your Motor Trend, Road and Track, read the stats kind of guy.
Yeah.
Right. So it was all, you know, this is the stats. That's how you learned it. And the only way you would figure it out if you liked the car or not is you went to test drive them. And you couldn't test drive that many cars, you know, with me being young and these cars being, you know, fast and expensive. But then once you got a little bit forward, once I had the car and you got in the mod game, you know, the biggest hit in my opinion was Turbo Magazine. Okay. That was, you know, that magazine at that time was the technical Bible for, you know, turbocharging cars, right? It may not have been Super Street that had the most amount of sales as far as the magazine went, but it was the magazine that, like, if you were in there, it was a special thing to be in the magazine, to be talked about in the magazine. Like, you had technical provenance.
Okay.
Once you were listed in there, you know, a lot of those names, you know, your Kenny Duttweiler, you know, like Vinny 10, Craig Paisley.
They were in there? Bullish
Racing. All those guys have been, you know, covered in there.
Oh, right? Covered, but not at the time when you were like, before you bought a Supra.
Not before I bought a Supra, but I mean, I didn't start reading that magazine until after I bought the Supra.
Okay.
kind of when I was like looking to figure out how to mod my car and stop losing.
Right.
Was when I started to pick up those magazines.
So now this car, obviously, you said you funded it with selling parts, right? What was the next phase? How did you guys transition into running this into like a full-on business? Like, how did you guys even come up with the name Titan?
So it's pretty funny. Initially I ran the business with a friend in Texas, and at some point I think between shipping, because people are shipping parts to the wrong address between Texas and Florida, and people are getting a little bit of a name confusion. We probably about 6 months in, we decided to basically split off in part, like not part ways in a bad way, but part ways in change names. So I changed the name, and Titan was not even, I don't even think it was in the top 20. I think it was like right around between 18 and 25 as far as names. And I was looking at so many different names. Some of them had like a Supra in it, but I didn't want to be, stuck with one make, because the Supra was not at that point in 99 no longer sold anymore. So for all intents and purposes, discontinued. They may never bring one back.
You think about it, how long it took for them to bring another one out.
I know.
Crazy, yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, we were waiting for the new Supra to come. So, so we went down the names. I mean, so many names, at the time I wanted to be in e-commerce, so I wanted to be online. So I was looking for the domain name. That was one of the key things that I needed to be able to get a .com name, which sounds simple, but it really isn't. And it's even harder today if you to come up with something unique.
Right.
So many names didn't qualify, because the domain name was taken. Maybe not even the name was used, but it was taken.
Yeah.
And we weren't, I don't think it was that popular just to go buy a domain name, but I didn't have that kind of funding to say, okay, let me go pay somebody a couple $1,000s for a .com.
Yeah.
So slowly and steadily going down that list of like trying to find names and different variations of names whether I added racing at the end or motorsports at the end or whatever, Titan Motorsports came up. And then a buddy of mine who was a great graphic artist kind of made the logo. And I was like, man, that looks really good, right? So I was like, okay, let's register the domain. I don't think I'm going to use it. I still didn't like the Titan name. Wasn't sure about the colors or any of the other. It was a mind meltdown, honestly, trying to figure it out. And then I think I just gave up. I was like, I can't come up with anything better. So, boom, Titan Motorsports is what it was.
Interesting.
And one of the things is it was universal, right? So I could sell Honda parts, or I could sell Camaro parts, whatever. Motorsports related, it was universal. And being that I was like, okay, I don't know how long I'm going to do this, but I know the Supra is no longer made. So if I have to transition into something else or add something else, other Toyota makes, because the Celica was coming out, stuff like that. And we did the Celica back then. Then we were able to sell Celica parts as well as Toyota Supra parts.
You mentioned that it seems like your push was to get a website first. And back then, the internet was kind of like just starting, roughly. Yeah. So were you getting inspiration from other people? Because I know, like, for example, kind of a weird relation, but like people like Jeff Bezos, like, back then that was kind of like, they believed that what they're doing now was, they already had that in their head. They were ahead of the game. Was that something that you were doing? Like, were you trying to be ahead of the game, or you just didn't know where the website would take you?
No, I knew that e-commerce was going to be popular.
Okay.
Or I felt like, because for me, that was my information source, right? That's what the World Wide Web was, right? Initially, it was a pure information source. And I'd been online since 95, and that's where I learned a ton about the Toyota Supra and modifying it. And back then, when emails were popular, they started doing email groups. And so I don't even know. You have no idea what probably an email group is.
The only thing I know about is AOL, Instant Messenger. I don't even know, Hotmail. I don't know. That's like 91.
Before forums came out, there was email lists, and so you basically would email. A conversation would start, and the conversation would start by people all getting the email, and then they would reply, and then that would continue the conversation. But you're talking about 300 or 500 people on this email chain, just continuing to update that specific topic. And each topic would have its own email chain. So the Supra email lists, I would get 10 or 20 emails a day, because each time somebody replied, it would be another email for that topic. And then that later formed into the forums.
So it's kind of like CCing a bunch of people.
Correct. You're literally maybe want to hear about this conversation or don't, but you're on the group chats. And so I would participate a lot in those, some with questions. But then once I learned a lot about the platform, I answered a lot of people's questions, because there'd be a new person who would come on and then ask, how do I mod my car? I have the car stock. What are my first things that I should do to the car?
Right. So how did you make the transition from a street car to the track? Like, what was the push there?
That started pretty early, even in the street racing days, probably right around 98.
Okay.
I was into going to the drag strip, and, one of the things after I did some mods was to, buy a set of drag wheels that, put drag radials on. Mm-hmm. And back then it was BF Goodrich that had the best drag radials. So you'd put a set of BFGs on, drag radials, and you just go to the track. And then we didn't have, they probably had private testing, but, you didn't really know about it. You would just go to the normal test and tune nights, mm-hmm. which was in Orlando and still is every Wednesday and Friday night. So I'd be literally here at OSW. It's my home track.
Yeah.
And we would go and test and tune from 6 to 10 o'clock.
Now, were you the one driving, or you had somebody else driving?
I drove, actually. So at that time in the 90s, I mean, this was all personal, right? It was just my car. Mm-hmm. I would just go try to beat my own personal times and have a good time, bring a bunch of my friends. And what's funny is a lot of those friends from street racing days then are still my friends now. We still have a blast going out. Racing's a different level, obviously, but we still have a blast going out, different events as a group.
So now, when the car was black, when was that a thing where you started to become known?
So, once the business started in 99, it started to take off pretty quickly, because those email lists that I was a member of, I had people sometimes ask me if I could sell them stuff, and I was like, not really. I'll tell you where to get it from, right? Yeah. And when I started actually doing e-commerce and selling product, I didn't realize it, but I had a following already. People knew me, knew my name from helping them, giving them advice, because I had modded my car already past their point. And I'd also measured and tested almost all the mods that I had done. Okay. So I was able to give the advice, so people started purchasing parts from me almost immediately. And so I thought that would slow down. It was like, okay, it's a new business. I'm like, the new restaurant in town, it's busy. Yeah. And then it'll fade away, in 6 months. And it never did. It just kept going, because once people got a taste of going fast and everything I sold them worked like it was supposed to, they were like, I'm going to this guy for more and more, right? Why am I going to go to somebody else who doesn't know the platform well? So it kept taking off. And, into 2000, I had the car, and it was down for about, I think, late 90s. I was building the car, and I wasn't building it. I was having the shop in Texas build it, and it kind of just sat in the back corner, to be honest. Oh, wow. And I want to say somewhere like mid-late 2000s, at this point, the business was doing something. I had one buddy who became an employee, and I had gotten the truck and trailer that we needed to go racing with. So we'd started getting the pieces, right? The business is making some money. Now I'm spending it buying parts, open truck and trailer, F-150, still living at home. We drove all the way to Texas to get all my stuff. Okay. And of course we get it, and it's like a complete shell. Like the car's probably sat outside a bunch. We loaded the whole truck down. The truck's fully loaded with all the parts in the bed and in the cab. Wow. And basically it's almost bottomed out, and drove it all the way back to Florida, and boom, just put the parts away, put the car. Now the car's home, right? Yeah. But what are we going to do with it? We don't have time to put this thing together. But we had all the parts. So we'll fast forward a little bit to I want to say later 2000, so at that point we had already moved into an actual shop, and it was one of those typical individual bay rentals, right? So small bay rental. So we had rented 2 bays, then we had rented a 3rd bay. And Mark Mazurowski, which now owns Mazworks,
Yep.
actually worked for us, and he was our fabricator. And, we got 2 pallets of car parts in the car sitting in the back. Mark had a Nissan. He used to race. He was that's how we met, right? Is at the streets. And he's like, what are we doing with this car? He's like, you're going to need a lot of parts to put this together. And we had John Ferguson back then, who was big into the Honda world. And John's like, he has everything. It's all sitting there. So Mark's, one day after work starts looking through everything. He's like, Nero, you have everything. You have turbos, you have pistons, you have rods, I was like, yeah, I know. I'm a parts distributor. I bought everything to put the car together. It just didn't get put together, right? I paid the guy to put it all together. It just didn't get put together.
Yeah.
So before you know it, he's like, I want to put this together. I go, yeah, it's gonna be fast, right? And we were racing a car, one of our buddies' car, which had a Greddy T78 on it.
Okay.
And that thing was going like, I want to say 1050s, 1070s. It was pretty quick. We took that to Supras Invade Las Vegas back then. That was a big event for Supras. Supras Invade Las Vegas. Silv.
That sounds fun.
It still goes around. It's a little bit smaller of an event, but drag racing was a big thing. So we had a big hit there. Showed that that car was going fast that we built. And we were like, we were building our car to be a dead rule book legal car for Pro Street Tire and NHRA Sport Compact. And the Mark and John were like, Nero, can we let's put this together. I'm like, cool. I definitely want to put it together. I don't like to leave a project unfinished, especially since that was my car, right? Like, even if I wasn't going to drive it, and I could have easily just sold it off, but I'm like, I'm going to at least finish it and it go to one race. Yeah. And then we'll see what happens after that. So those guys worked freaking almost every night, after hours, right at the end of the day, ordering parts left and right. I'm talking to Jeff Giovino at NHRA Sport Compact. He was the tech director back then. I was making sure everything I did was by the rules, by the rule book. If there was a little bit of gray area, I wasn't sure. I wanted to ask because I felt that I would build the best car, and I didn't want to get protested once I got there and it ran fast. So I didn't want to go through that headache. I was like, let me build it 100% right. So, got the NHRA cert, everything. We caged the car. The guys put the whole car together, and I think it got done like maybe a week before the Sport Compact race.
Wow. That's how it usually goes, huh?
The annual event. So nobody knew I was building this car. I'd done some research. The guys at Bullish Racing were huge back then. They'd built pro cars at that point, but they'd been into the Supra, R.R. Slanian, George, all those guys. So I'd called them, which clutch do I use? So I got Tilton clutch at the time, Tilton triple carbon. I mean, that thing, I think then was $5,000.
Triple carbon back then?
$5,000. So it was like, is this worth it? I had to call so many times to be like, are you sure this thing works? Are you sure it's worth it? I mean, because back then an expensive clutch was $2,500.
But 5,000 still to this day is expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine, but this is in 2000. So
I'd be sweating.
Back
it's
then,
like a transmission, bro.
Back then, transmissions were cheaper.
Yeah, but I'm saying that price is like
you could have bought a transmission from Toyota brand new, a V160 brand new for probably like $3,500 or $4,000, and yet I have to buy a clutch that's $5,000.
Those prices are no longer around today.
I'm like, is this thing going to work? So of course I did a lot of due diligence before I spent that money, but we put the car together and went and tested it, and we'd pretty much set in testing the national record for the class. Wow. We knew it was there already. But we just had to go and do it.
Yeah.
And that's how it snowballed. And so Mazurowski, we didn't even know who was going to drive up until probably a month or two before.
Okay.
Back then I had some back issues and I was running the business and I really wanted to drive, but honestly, just running the business alone, it was a 80 or 90 hour a week thing, and my mindset wasn't there. And Mark was ready to go, honestly. And, so, we put Mark in the car, and I mean, he did fantastic. He was like a fish in water. I mean, he built the car, so he knew everything about it, right? Him and John built the car. So we went and, one of the biggest highlights is we went to Gainesville, which is our backyard, Sport Compact opener. And, we set the national record for the class when we blew it out of the water. We actually didn't win that race. We actually runnered up because we smoked the tires in the final.
Damn.
But we still left number one qualifier, setting the record, so we left points leader. And so that's where chasing the championship started. It's like we're points leader by 1 point.
Yeah.
Game on.
So since you built this car, it seems like you had a purpose, right? You were going to build it to drag race, right? Yep. Now, there's people who build their cars and they want to take it to the next level. Now, one of the things that you have to build your car for is for class, for whatever class you're going to race in, right? Whether it's X275, which is probably a stretch, or any other class, right? So can you briefly break down, as best as you can, how the classes work and how you would build your car for a class?
So classes are always changing. That's the first thing. So you got to be cognizant of that. Don't just start building a car so strict to the rules that the rules could change. And by that I mean, look, if you're building a car for a basic class, order some of your parts last. Your turbocharger, they're changing every freaking year, every few months. Order your turbo last. Like I can tell you people who've been building cars who've been through 3 turbos before the car ever got started. Because the turbochargers constantly keep, will change. And it's not even the rules, the technology has changed. Same thing with engine management. So those are the 2 things I would say, hey, wait till you're close to the end of firing the car up before you order them, because if you order them first, those are the ones that are like the juicy parts, right? Like I want to see it. I got the turbo. Yeah, those are the parts that by the time you get the car done, you're going to have to get the new.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say wait on those. So a lot of your classes, it depends on what you're building. A lot of people build street tire type cars or street cars. That's going to be one of your first entries into racing quite often.
Right.
Fortunately, a lot of those rules are a little bit more open, like in the case of the A90 Supra class, or now it's called the X58 class. You can have pretty much anything that's legal to the rules, which is just if you have a roll bar in it, all your safety equipment, which is critical. And then, you have factory engine, 58 engine and factory style transmission, you're good to go. So, and then you can build upon that by obviously doing a built transmission, built engine, and you can work your way up. So if you're starting in some of those classes, they're pretty wide open. They have a big swing of cars, like at Texas 2K.
Yeah.
770 could be number 1 qualifier. 860 is number 16. That's where the bump is, right? So that's a 1 second gap. It's pretty huge.
Yeah.
But it's huge because it has a wide variety of cars,
right,
that can enter it without a strict rule set. Okay. If you go into maybe some sort of bracket racing or more competitive class, like let's say like a pro import class, the 5 second classes, well, those are going to have a little bit of a stricter rule set, right? They're going to have a weight, they're going to have a chassis, they may have a turbo rule, engine displacement rules, and of course all your typical safety rules. So each class varies. It all depends on kind of what it's going for. The more cars that are racing in those classes, usually the stricter the rules are, because they're trying to keep the parity as close together. Okay. So even like NHRA Pro Mod, you can have any of 3 power adders, 3 different choices, right? 3-4 different choices, but the parity is so close because the rules are so strict, right? They can throw, if one power adder seems to have a benefit, they'll throw 20 pounds of weight onto that category. So, but there's 80 or 90 cars sometimes showing up for a 32 car field. So it all depends on kind of where you're going. If you're entering into something extremely competitive, then you're going to have to be very cognizant of the rules. Okay. And at that point, hopefully you have some friends that are already racing there, because you need to get an understanding of the background.
There's people who want to just go and race to the track and enter, let's say if it's TX2K or whatever. Let's say if they get into like the stick shift class, right? That is a pretty competitive class, right? So where would you even line up there? Would you just go to have fun? Or does it get to a point where you're like, I want to go race, but I know I'm not even going to be able to compete with some of these cars in that class?
So, it's funny. I have a friend here, local. He has a new Supra, and you know who it is. But but he wants to go race at Texas 2K.
Okay.
but he doesn't want to spend the money, right?
Okay.
He's like, that's a lot of money. I can use it in my business. I can use it for my family, my house. So first start off by having fun. I can tell you, I love going to Texas 2K. It's like a goal of mine to win, but it's super expensive. First of all, you're at the Super Bowl. So the teams in NFL that go to Super Bowl are quite often the ones that spend the most money, right?
Yep.
It's the same thing at Texas 2K. So whatever category you're in, you got to be spending a good amount of money if you want to be one of the front runners. Then the event's 7 days long. So you're spending money to get your car there, 7 days worth of racing, 7 days worth of hotels, eating out, having a good time. Now it's a fantastic time.
Yeah.
But it is tiring, right? It's exhausting. It's literally, a full week long thing of racing. If you want to have fun and you're starting out, go to your local track where all your friends are, where all your friends can come help you, can help guide you even, especially if you're more into it, new into it. And a lot of these events like the Racing Channel events or any of these one-day events that are out there, you can literally go in the morning and you're done by the end of the day doing your race and you go out to eat with your friends. No hotels. You spent probably 30 or 40 bucks in gas to get there. If the car broke, it wasn't the end of the world. It's not an expensive tow back. Your friends will help you, work on the cars, learn about the car, tune the car, whatever changes you're trying to make. And you'll honestly, those events where there's the least amount of pressure, you'll have probably the most amount of fun and you'll spend the least. So that's the first thing. Now, all of us want to win the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Of racing, right? Any event. So when you get there and you work your way up and you're ready for that challenge, and you're willing to spend the money for it, then you go to those races. But the truth is you're going to have more fun going to 5 or 10 races a year that's local than you are going to one huge event in that year. You will have you can save yourself a lot of cost if you don't have a car that's that competitive to go there by just flying out and just experiencing it. And you will learn a lot by walking around, asking people questions about their mods, about how they got this. You'll make friends in that same category, whether it's the X58 class, the stick shift class, the 2JZ versus the world, any of those classes, GTR, V10, you just walking around that event, you will learn so much just by talking to different owners.
Yeah.
But those guys are coming from all around the country to race for that prize, where if you have a race in Orlando, you're really getting people who are maybe just in Florida coming to the event. This is a one day deal. There's not a big purse, but you'll have a massive amount of fun. So I would start there.
I always wondered, like the amount of money that goes into this hobby that we have is insane, right? And it's probably one of the more expensive hobbies out of anything else, right? Maybe aside from boats. But when these people go to these events and race like TX2K and maybe even, I wouldn't say World Cup because World Cup is probably expensive too, but like TX2K is more of like you said, Super Bowl, right? Where do you think most of these people are getting this money from? How are they funding this stuff? Is it just more of like a marketing tool, a write-off because they have to spend the money? Because the amount of money that some of these people spend is like they have spare motors, like just travel, the RVs and everything. Like it's really expensive. So like I always wonder like how you have to have some sort of business to be able to fund this, right? You can't be like a guy who's just working a job and doing this, right?
So there's a bit of both, So you have a wide variety. You definitely have your business owners, right?
Right.
Business owners that have big businesses that can go away for a week and go race and have the money to race the car. You have some people who have good jobs, maybe an executive level or a high-paying sales job or something else that could be there. It depends maybe in the class they're running. Some of those guys have been in the game for so long that they have friends that may tow the car there, right? Like if you have a busy job and you're on my team, but you're like, yo, you're gonna drive the truck and trailer there. I'll fly in. I'm gonna cover the costs. Whatever. We're all gonna get together, or we're all gonna piece it together. One of the things that we don't see as much in the streetcar world, but I've talked about even with my good friends is like we could build the baddest car if 4 of us get together and put all our money into one car.
Yeah.
And in the domestic side, that's literally what happens quite often.
Wow.
Yeah. If you're trying to build a pro mod and you've got a good team and they all like working on it, but none of them can completely afford it, but everybody can chip in 10 grand a year.
Yeah.
And you go. One of the other things too is, a lot of these programs, a lot of these cars weren't built in 1 year, in 2 years. These guys have been doing it for 10 or 20 years, right? So, once you have a car, let's just say you have a car that's worth $50,000, it's paid off, you sell it to go buy yourself the $80,000 or $90,000 car, right?
Right.
And you do that. And same thing with the truck and the trailer, and you just work your way up. And, that's how you go. It's in steps. So the guy that's going to have the most fun at their local track in 10 years may have a semi-truck, trailer, and a V10.
Right.
But he started by just racing his local track 5 races a year. That's how you get there.
I think I was referring more to, now that because you were speaking and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like there are people who maybe people who build their Supra and they put like $100,000 into it and they've been working on that car for the past 3 years. They're able to go there. They have a trailer already. They can definitely go and race the TX2K. But I'm talking about like the pro mod guys, like those guys who have those $500,000 build. It's like you got to have an abundance of money to be able to afford to build a $500,000 car, right?
Usually, but it's not always the case.
Okay.
Sometimes some people finance it. Like some people have financed the car.
Finance $500K?
You finance the car. Yeah, you can finance it.
What do those payments look like? $500,000?
They're not good. They're more than a house.
They're not good. Yeah, no, literally. It's like you're literally buying a house. You're
maybe even 2 houses.
No, 100%. And then it's never $500,000. It's usually more.
Yeah.
But I mean, spare motors and
those guys, I mean, it's like anything. Everybody has like that competitive drive, and some of these guys did well in business. Some of them maybe had a windfall. They sold their business, they got inheritance, whatever, and this has been like their dream. They've always wanted to be at Texas 2K or one of these big events. And so they spend the money to build a car, to race it at that event. Now, they don't always have their truck and trailer. Like they work with a shop, whether it's like a Titan, Underground Racing, a T1 Race, AMS. There's a lot of big names that have been around that will say, hey, we have the support network. You can basically lease our support network and we'll service your car and you'll be there. So that's if you haven't been around it forever, that's your best way in, is to have a shop build you an awesome car and support taking you to those few events. Because most of the time, if you're trying to go to those events, you're just going to go to a few of them, 2 or 3, which the shop likely is going to, and then they'll charge you to support it.
It's a good thing that those cars obviously are racing, because that's what most people look up to. I mean, obviously this is another car that evolved from a black Supra up into the copper, right? So another event that was big back then, that was before my time, was Nopi, and that was literally like the Super Bowl for car shows, drag racing, and so on. Now, the car was black or it was copper when it was at Nopi?
So, the car started out black. The first year of racing, it was black, and then we added a graphic scheme to it before, I want to say, Atco, which I think was the second race. Because we brought the car and we just had kind of a couple of stickers on it. There's nothing fancy. And we're like, we need to graphic this up. Now it needs to look like a race car, right? Yeah. So we graphicked it up before one of the races and literally took it like there in the shop Speed by Design. I think it was, Speed Design, one of the, something like that. Literally graphicked it overnight. They stayed up all night and graphicked 2 cars for us. Our white car, and we had our black car, but then we also had a white car that Omar Sanchez drove. It was slower, but it was the sister car. So we had kind of that opposite thing going. So we did graphic schemes on both of those cars and took it to that event. And that became kind of what rolled us into. We didn't know how many races we're going to go to. We're like, we're gonna chase this championship. That was the goal, but we don't know. We had Gainesville was easy. We didn't break any parts. We were just sitting around, just filling it up with fuel and checking it. All right. Atco, I think we had some things break, and we started to learn the realities of trying to drag race a car. And then we we just started doing well, and we were in the points chase, and we were doing good. So we just kept going to one after another. And before you know it, I think I was borrowing a 40-foot enclosed trailer. And then I think I had to go from my F-150 to I went and traded it in on a dually.
Okay.
You know, so like this
making them upgrades.
This game, like, yeah, once I had the car done, it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
Then it's like, how do I get to each race and how do I bring all my spare parts to the race? So it kept evolving and kept, the whole year. So that year we won the Pro Street Tire Championship for
with Mark driving.
With
right?
Mark driving, yep. So with NHRA Sport Compact. So then they actually canceled that class.
Oh, okay.
I think maybe they couldn't find parity. Maybe they didn't feel it was popular. So BF Goodrich then sponsored the Pro Street Tire class in Nopi, and so that's where we would fall into in 2002.
And the car was still black when it went.
The car was black. So we get a call. I want to say it's like probably right around December, and I think Fast and Furious had already come out, and they'd done the orange car that year.
Yeah.
So everybody knew the orange, and BF Goodrich had the monochromatic posters, right? So they were like, "Hey, we want to have you on the poster," which like was huge. Like,
yeah.
I was hoping they would ask, but they never said anything, and suddenly, hey, we got a spot. You can be on it. Then I'm like, cool. They're like, but can you paint the car? They had to ask night. Like, it was weird how they didn't know if I was obsessed with the color of it being black or what. And I knew that wasn't like the most photographic colored car, but it was on the cover of Turbo Magazine, in black. And I was like, they're like, would you consider painting it? And I'm like, yeah, I would consider it. That's expensive.
And wraps weren't even a thing back then?
Wraps didn't even exist back then.
Okay,
that would have made it definitely really easy. So, and they wanted, they wanted the monochromatic theme. So they really needed the paint, the car to be painted that color and it to stay that color, right? So we started brainstorming and, we kept coming back. Well, one of the colors for Titan is orange. It's orange, silver, and black. So we're not going to paint it silver or black. Wasn't the
right,
two?
Has to be on brand.
So the orange was it, but our orange was similar to like kind of the Fast and Furious orange, and we didn't want to go that route. And we just brainstorming month after month, and then we found this color, or we found a similar color to this, and manipulated it, and basically became the Titan Copper Supra. And so we took it back to Gainesville. And they rented the track. BF Goodrich rented the track. They had a huge photo team. This was like paparazzi level stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very serious. Like, these were high-end professionals. We'd not been around that, level of like photography and media at that point. And they did a whole big photo shoot. We did a burnout. What's funny is Weld sent us wheels for the brand new wheels at the time, but Weld couldn't even send us a pair of wheels. They sent us one set of wheels. So we would photo shoot the car from one side, even when we did a burnout, and then we would take the wheels off and put them on the opposite side.
Just for the photo.
Just for the photos when they would shoot either side. So we had to juggle it back and forth, but it was a phenomenal experience. That poster is very special to me, just that we were able to get, filmed that way. And they were they gave these posters away to, all the kids, the young kids. I'm sure there's tons of super fans that still have them. And
yeah.
I
think I might've seen some photos in Dave's shop, Head Games. I think he has a photo of the car. It's somewhere in the shop, I think I saw. But I'm sure there was other OEM companies that were sponsoring a lot of the drag racing back then, right? Why do you think that has shifted now?
Sport Compact was very new, and once we got into, let's say, 2004, 2005, you had General Motors came in, Toyota was there, then Toyota was also there with the Scion brand.
Wow, Scion, yeah.
Yep.
Shout out to my Scion XB, my deli.
Yep. Honda was present, Mazda, all the names were really there.
Yeah.
I think when NHRA Sport Compact, they stopped doing Sport Compact, I think that changed the atmosphere.
Okay.
At the same time, I think they stopped in 2008. Then the economy, we rolled into a bad economy.
Right. The the crash.
Recession,
Yeah,
yep.
recession, yeah.
Everything changed, right?
Yeah.
So the marketplace changed. Nopi then stopped racing. So I think we just lost manufacturer support overall for the sport.
There's just controversy around drag racing a little bit, and it's mostly about if it's going to survive for a while because of how many less people are getting into it now. I'm not sure if it's because of cost or what it is, but how do you think we can get some of these bigger companies to kind of come on board and really push and get back into it? It's kind of hard because they normally need to see something happening in order for them to be involved. But if there's not much happening, it's kind of hard for them to kind of be involved. And a lot of stuff now has changed because of, I guess, safety and so on. But is it just different times or?
Yeah, I think, part of it is, and SEMA's faced some of these same issues, right? With the EPA,
Right.
Multiple manufacturers have stepped away from SEMA. From presenting there, and some of those
I noticed that, yeah.
some of those same manufacturers, are probably a little hesitant about, turning a chassis that was, built race, into a race car. Obviously, with our political climate now changing again, hopefully some of those manufacturers will come back and be less weary about, promoting in race venues. I think the other side also is, I think race venues need to try to work with, let's say, your local car dealerships and work with your local, those car dealerships as well as the manufacturers as far as like displaying. In the end of the day, these manufacturers are there to sell cars, right?
Right.
That's their business. When you have an event that's huge, you have a captive audience, you have an enthusiast audience, but you gotta, car dealerships are kind of like, hey, do we want to send some people there? To, they don't know if they're welcome. They don't know if there's a place to display. A lot of these owners, a lot of these marketing professionals, they're used to doing your radio ads. They're used to doing social media. Those are your key things. They don't know that there's a huge event in town. They also don't know if they're like welcome there, right? Because it can be a little bit more grungy or a little bit more like, you got to be a car somebody who's a vendor that's in that industry.
Right.
And technically some of these guys are like, well, we sell the cars, but we're kind of not in the industry, right? Like if you're racing at your local sport compact event, realistically, a lot of those people that are there have Toyotas, Nissans, Mazdas, your normal minivans, your Tacomas,
Okay, I see, yeah.
But they don't know that those guys are there and that they could turn them into clients or show them vehicles.
Yeah.
Like I would love to see at some of our local races, Toyota bring 4 or 5 cars to display just to show people and say, hey, this is the cars that we have available.
Yeah.
Come in. If you want, why don't you set an appointment up to test drive? Those activations will then turn into race car sponsorship.
Yeah, we need some more big companies. I feel like it's kind of like drag racing needs something. It's definitely evolved from the time you were doing it up until now. It's definitely shifted. Now, obviously, we have drifting and other things that are coming out that are becoming more popular. But I think social media has been a big factor for a lot of the push in those different sports.
Definitely our viewership is phenomenal, right? World Cup sold out.
World Cup is honestly, I think that's to me personally, no disrespect to any other event, I think that's the one event that drag racing is still like holding its own on.
Yeah. But Orlando World Sport Compact Nationals.
That event too. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm wrong. There's like Snowbirds is also popular.
Snowbirds.
There's a lot of events
Florida 2K.
Yep,
Texas,
FL2K.
Texas 2K. A lot of these events, they've virtually sold out or the place has been
World
packed.
Cup usually actually sells out.
Yeah.
Like, I think that event, that's what I meant. Like, a lot of the marketing thing is, oh, this event's selling out or we're sold out. But, like, World Cup actually sells out.
Yep.
Like, legit.
100%.
There's no debate there.
But, all these events so far over the last few years have had great attendance. Phenomenal attendance.
Yeah, FL2K is, actually, that's one of my favorite events.
It's an untapped market for some manufacturers, some vendors to promote their line of products.
Right.
20,000, 30,000, 50,000 people through the weekend that are enthusiasts. If you have a product they could buy, you have them captive there, ready to look at it.
I did forget to ask you this, right? So when you change the color to copper, right? Victor, has a copper Supra, and a lot of people seem to compare the Supras because obviously this has been so iconic, right?
You mean the Temu version?
I didn't say all that.
I mean, it is slower. It's not as quick. But no, in all honesty, you know, I love Victor. You know, he's done great for the sport.
Oh, he's the Temu version. That's great.
Yeah, but yeah, no, Victor's fantastic. I'll tell you, it's flattering, right? Victor's actually a connoisseur of the Toyota Supra, right? You know, Craig Paisley is one of his icons, one of his a car that he's always like looked up to. He's known the Toyota Supra market from a young age. You know, he's a little younger, so you know he's built his business, built the racetrack up, and I really feel like you know him emulating his car against ours just shows like how much of an impact our platform and we had with our Toyota Supra. So, and he's not the only one. You know, there's been a couple of street car. We built a street car that was kind of the same color. There's another street car that was a copy of that street car.
Yeah.
In Dubai, they copied the stickers, all the parts. They bought all the parts from us. I couldn't tell in some of the pictures the difference between that one and the one that we built. So, you know, it's honestly a privilege, you know, that other people, especially the next generation and the generation after that, has literally felt that our car was that special to them that they were willing to spend money to emulate it.
It's hard because the color thing is, with this car, it's like, you know, it's a very specific color. So do you think that was intentional? Because obviously a lot of people have looked up to this car, right?
Yeah.
Or do you think it was just like, hey, I like this color? Like,
no, I think it was 100% intentional. You know, like you don't build a drag car, you know, drag specific car without obviously knowing like the market and every other car. And obviously, you know, he grew up wanting to drag race, you know, loving the Toyota Supra. So for him, you know, to do that, I feel it was special. It was special to him because he was able to accomplish building something, and obviously the car was iconic enough and special to him in a way that he felt it was something like that he wanted to be a part of and have a piece of.
Yeah. So it's because you think it's because of the inspiration, of course, obviously, and you're able to kind of, you know, what's funny about that is that most people that, and shout out to my guy Dre, the reason why I don't want to say the reason why he's doing so well, but we're at the age, and Jay spoke about this too. We're at an age now, we're in our 30s, like I'm in my 30s, right? And I've looked up to this car. So now we get a little bit of money, we're able to afford these cars, right?
Yep.
So you're going to do, and even Hondas too, like there's guys who have Hondas like Sonic and those guys, they're doing like $100,000 Honda Civic builds. And back then they weren't able to afford to do those kind of things, right? They're doing like full restorations. So even when you get a Supra, you're going to do everything that you saw when you were younger, maybe. You know, you want to emulate that and kind of relive that moment of you know.
Well, it's funny because, you know, the people who are spending, let's say, $50,000 or $100,000 in a Honda, they could afford a Supra, right?
Right.
And they go, I've always wanted a Honda. I didn't care about the Supra. The guys doing the Supra that can afford a $50,000 or $100,000, $150,000 Supra, they could afford a Porsche. And they're like, nah, I never wanted a Porsche. I always wanted a Supra, or I wanted a copper Supra. I wanted a Supra built by Titan Motorsports. So that's, you know, something they've always wanted, lived up to. That was their favorite car when they were young. And, you know, again, you know, props to those guys, you know, because they had a goal when they were young.
Yeah.
And it may have taken them 10 or 15 or 20 years, and they got to that goal and they stuck to who they really are and what they liked, you know? And so whether it's a Honda, a Supra, DSM, 300Z, you know, all these cars have a following, a cult following. And those are the people who really have built their sport, and adding those guys up and keep going up and up, you know, that's what continues to propel it.
And that's what keeps it alive, 100%. Because without those builds, like I was saying before, the guys who are spending those $500,000 pro mods, you're looking at builds that have been evolving over the years. So it just keeps people who are trying to get into the sport like looking at something to kind of keep going.
Yeah.
So with the copper Supra, right? There's so much history with this car, and I'm sure that people who have Supras or even import racing, they were watching this car throughout the years. right? I know it probably is a lot for you to kind of think about, but what was one of the most iconic or biggest rivalries you had back then that you can remember with the Copper Supra?
Oh, well, Copper Supra. So like initially with Ari Allen with the FD,
Okay.
that was the first year. He was the guy who'd won the championship in 2000. So he was obviously when we came in, that was the bullseye. If he was going to show up, that was the car that we knew we had to race against. He was the prior record holder, prior champion. So he was the guy we were chasing after. After we won that championship, then we ended up racing Paul Afontis, which also had a Toyota Supra, in the Nopi series. So that would go literally back to back all the time. And then even Vinny 10 came back into that world when he built a 350Z.
Which is,
with the, and they drag raced that also in that class. So,
what was in the 350Z?
It was, I believe, like it was a twin turbo 400. It was a full street tire car. Yeah.
Wow.
So Vinny wasn't driving, but he had built the car.
Right. There was a bit of rumors going around about Papadakis and how you had beat him so bad that he wanted to quit drag racing and go into drifting.
I mean,
is this true?
I don't know.
This is what I heard.
I don't know if he could handle it. Maybe he just knew the 2JZ was the king. I mean, he was a Honda guy. He had the V6. I mean, he had a gorgeous car built by Don Ness. But yeah, I mean, after getting his ass whooped a couple of times, I think he moved on to drifting. It's easier to do a judged event and feel good about yourself.
Yeah, that's crazy. So Papadakis is obviously a legend, right?
Yeah, I love Steph, by the way.
We're gonna have him on the podcast as well. I've been wanting to interview him for a while, even when the B58 first came out, because he was like first on that, like the first guy actually building those cars or the engines, taking them apart and doing big things with them. So I just find it funny that that he's more so into the B58 platform and he's had a history before that just kind of doesn't even, like, they're opposite for the most part, right?
Yeah, I mean, Steph is just a professional. I mean, from front to back, top to bottom, he is just an absolute professional. So some of that is the partnership, right? So he's partnered with Toyota, so that's where obviously they want to take the platform, right? That's what they feel is relevant, as well as some of his other sponsors. So, a lot of times for Steph, his sponsors are going to dictate some of what he's, they're wanting to see, what they're wanting him to use and do, and what events they want him to do. So, he's built a program in Sport Compact, from the early days that is just done phenomenal, and he's continued to migrate through the changes, through the Great Recession. He moved into drifting because, he saw that there was something there that the youth wanted to capture.
Yeah, he was smart with that
one. Yeah, smart. And also, in the West Coast, it's
more popular.
Yeah, it was more popular. So he moved onto that platform, and he's done great with YouTube, sharing technical information.
Yep. I watched all those videos when they first came out.
So yeah, I mean, he's a great guy. He's been phenomenal for our sport.
Yeah, legend, right? Now we can't overlook Ekanoo, right? And obviously Shane T was on the podcast, and he had mentioned your involvement as well.
Yep.
So how did that even happen? Of course, we know that Titan has been involved in some of the fastest Supras in the world. Back then, that was another iconic moment, and obviously another Copper Supra moment, but obviously with the white Supra, of course. So how did you get involved with that?
It was somewhat dumb luck, right? So I was invited when Qatar built their first drag strip for their grand opening to come over, visit, check it out. Big in the Middle East at that time, and this is 2008. Turbocharging was the preferred method of making power. So I went over there, and we went to Bahrain first, which is Ekanoo's hometown, and there's a drag race there with all the pro mods and stuff. And I happened to be just walking around, and I saw he had a GTR, brand new one, and it had already been painted orange, and then he had the Supra green one. It was the Hulk, and I mean these cars were gorgeous, right? You didn't see this kind of stuff in the U.S. So he shows up a little later. I talked to him. He knew who I was, which was like awesome.
Of course,
and we ended up spending a decent amount of the day together, hanging out, went to dinner and whatnot. And then from there, I'd gone to Abu Dhabi, gone to Qatar to see, the grand opening of the track, and then, come home. So we stayed in touch, some emails here and there. He had Shane T and his teams, they had their program, so they were happy. But, I'd always wanted to help and wanted to be part of it. And somewhere along the lines, he called me up, a little bit of a frantic thing, needed a motor, and because they had a race starting in a week or whatnot. Maybe I think they'd hurt their motor testing as it happens. And, our season was over. When their season starts, it's usually right around October.
Okay.
So our season was over. This may have been November, and I had a spare motor for the MK4 Supra, of course, in the trailer. And I'm like, look, he's like, when do you need a motor? He goes, I need it today. Today. Like, I'm like, when do you really need it? He's like, seriously, need it. I need you to ship something, hopefully today. Okay. And this was like 2:00. So I'm like, I think I can sell you my spare motor for my street car, from my car. It's in the trailer. I got to go check, right? So I'm like, have my guys go check what's in the trailer. How together is it? I don't know if it's just a cylinder head, a block, or if it's ready to go in the car. So it was pretty close to ready to go in the car. I think it needed the cams needed to be shimmed and a couple of things. So I was like, look, here's the deal. I was like, I know you're in a pinch. I can help you out. I can ship this thing tomorrow. I'll have the guys stay late tonight. We gotta go get a crate. We gotta get this thing. It's got to go all the way to Bahrain and air shipment.
Right.
So he's like, cool. So that's how it started. He needed some help, just like a lot of our other customers do. And before you knew it, the motor worked well. He was happy. And then he needed more help with the car. And, we're talking at that point, like I'm talking to his team pretty often and, just kind of helping them migrate to building his car into being similar to our MK4 Supra, like literally piece by piece. Okay, hey, this is the flywheel I use. This is a transmission I've used. It didn't all happen at one time. It happened over probably a 6-month period.
Wow.
Of us like sharing information and data and helping them get to where it was at. So once that started, that car started to fly. It was running phenomenal. Yeah, it was running phenomenal. So I don't know what we're talking about. We're just always, car guys, just like we're talking right now.
Yeah.
We're brainstorming, and he is honestly he's awesome to work with. Like he is, when he's passionate about it, he's all in on it. Mm-hmm. And at this time, his life, we're similar age. We were both into it. And he's like, yo, why don't we build a new car? And I'm like, okay, you're gonna build it over there. I'll just send you the parts. And he's like, no. I need you to, let's go to the next level. Like, okay. So that's where this whole thing, like, I don't even think it was maybe a month and a half, and probably a month. And it's like, go find a chassis, a car, rolling shell, and let's start building it. I was like, okay. And so I want to say this is 2010.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just going to build a little bit of it, ship it over, they'll do their thing. And we're talking all the time. And so literally I bought actually my best friend's car. It was the motor was blown in it, and it was literally a rolling shell.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I got other things going on, sell it. So I had it, brought it here, boom. Before you know it, we're building the whole car top to bottom. And literally, we're cutting the whole car apart, trying to shed all the weight. We'd raced 80 RL, so we knew about making a car light.
Yeah.
We, had never built a full chassis, but at the time I had a chassis builder on staff, so we knew what to do, but we didn't have all the equipment. So we're like buying the equipment, getting the jig table, and literally building this car top to bottom. And it basically was like a 3/4 style car, but a modern one at the time in 2010.
Yeah.
The whole goal was just to run 6s in Bahrain, which was blistering fast, by the way. To go 690s was a big deal.
I mean, that's still kind of like a big deal nowadays.
It is still a big deal nowadays, but I mean, obviously 2010, that was huge.
Yeah.
So, before you know it, it's like, okay, we have one spare motor, and he's like, yo, we're going to need another spare motor because, he'd already been racing his Supra for multiple years. He knew he needed to have spares. And, I had, with the prior cars, I had helped him, kind of build it to build a similar program to mine, right? To be like, these are the spares I use. These are the parts that we go through on a regular basis and that you need to keep. And it's easier to keep an inventory and cycle it than to always need it last minute, especially since it's so far away.
Right.
So we built the car, plenty of spares, tested the car here. The first debut, now he was supposed to drive. So he was driving his car. He's great driver. He honestly, sometimes he let it hang out probably a little too much, but I mean, he was doing fantastic. So this car was going to be just like the next step up in safety and the next step up in like ET, but he was more than capable of hopping in it and driving it. So we all fly over there for the first debut. Gary White, drives it. We go, I think we went 6s the first time. So I was like, check that off for this season. That was the one. I think we had 4 races or 5 races that season. That was like what he wanted to do, was go 6s. So we didn't get a chance to test over there much and get him in the car. So we had a conversation. Okay, we're going to come back to the next race a month later and we're going to put you in the car. Great. We're going to go the whole day of testing with him in the car. He's like, great. By the end of the thing, he's like, you think you guys would come over each race and Gary would drive it? I said, sure, no problem. But at some point, he's going to get it. Never got in the car. I think he just had too much fun, with not driving for once,
Probably
and
exciting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, he loved it, I told him, I said, from my standpoint, I used to drive and I wanted to finish this car. And I was like, I just want to finish it and go for one race. And I didn't know if I'd like not driving because I always built the car because I wanted to drive it.
Right.
And I had a different feeling standing behind the car, knowing like, hey, this is my program, my car, and we're racing it. But I had a lot of fun. So that's where like it went from going to Gainesville for the first race to racing it and still racing now and having drivers drive for me now. It's still a blast. It's a different responsibility, different interaction, but it's still your stuff. You're still like, it's your program. You get to dictate it. You get to call the shots. So I think he had the same thrill. And before you know it, a couple years go by and it's like 690s was not a big deal, 650s, 640s, and you just keep chipping away at it. Turbos kept getting bigger, went from 98 millimeter to 102 to 106. And those, each time a new turbo came out, that was a big iteration, but you were obviously setting the whole car up and changing everything. And probably it's one of the biggest accomplishments, I think, in my career is that car going 5s first.
First 5-second Supra in the world.
And I feel, I was talking to Shane at PRI, and that's one thing we have in common. He feels in his career that was probably one of the biggest deals
I think,
ever in his career. So it's something we both share in common. I can't thank Ekanoo, enough. Ibrahim I still work with him. We send him parts still. I mean, we're sending, now it's season again, so we're sending him parts nonstop for, some of he's working on the orange Supra, the manual one. So, they're building it and drag racing it. So, the funny thing is, I don't know if anybody will ever see that car unless you come back to Bahrain. He'll never sell that car.
In a garage or something.
It's a true collector item. I actually was wishing that, when the No Prep King stuff came out, that he would have taken it to some No Prep races.
Car?
Yeah. It would have fit that rule base. Steel quarters, firewall. I mean, it really is identical to some of those type of cars. Yeah.
Well, where do you go from there? Like, obviously we have Natty now, right?
Yep.
Who set the import record, but like once you're in the 5s, I mean, then what? Like you're like, how much money would it cost to go from, where did that car run? A 5, was it 5?
5.996, maybe something like 5.9.
That was the record?
Well, when it went, it was the first to go fives.
Well, I'm saying the personal best for that Supra, Ekanoo Supra.
I'd have to look. I think it was like a 5.98, maybe somewhere in that range. Yeah.
How much more money would it cost to go from a 5.9 to like a low 5?
Oh, I mean, see, the thing is, at that point, that car was still an actual steel-bodied car with, based off of factory wheelbase.
Okay, so it's
right.
Weight is going to be a big factor.
And the car was probably, I don't remember what it weighed, but it was probably like 2,500, maybe even 26. So it's definitely a heavier car, right? Where like you have like obviously like our modern pro imports, some of them are in the 2,200 to 2,300 pound range,
right?
And those are like you mentioned, Natty. They have our full drive line.
Right.
So our motor, the Eric Lazinski's clutch, which he's also our crew chief. He's been with us for 20 years. So basically like our whole driveline package. And Natty is definitely held the torch. He's been another phenomenal racer to work with.
Yeah, Natty's doing his thing out there.
Yep.
Now, so we also got guys like White Rice, right? Those guys who are doing big things, right? Now, can they be in the same conversation as Ekanoo and that car, what it's done?
I mean, Ekanoo did that 10 years ago.
Okay.
2015, okay? And, White Rice, which is now on the 2.0 version, right? Which that car is very similar to Ekanoo's car. Hasn't gone fives yet. So it's really hard to compare because, you're talking about, somebody who is 10 years ago. Things have changed. So, the White Rice guys are doing phenomenal. I love Eric. I love the team. I think they're doing great with the 2JZ platform.
Yeah.
They've always used that engine as their primary choice. I mean, they played with some V8s,
right.
Some Pro Mod engines and so forth. But they've really focused on the 2JZ in the last couple of years, and so I think they've done great. But it's hard to compare, in the Ekanoo when Ekanoo went fives 10 years ago, and they haven't yet.
Is it like the same car technically? Like, can it even be in the same class?
It'd be pretty similar. They ran
White Rice, right? And Saki Bomb is pretty much like a Pro Mod.
Saki Bomb's, a complete pro import,
right.
Pro Mod type car. They would run in a similar class. I mean, they're both built similar. Obviously different timelines. And Ekanoo's used a different rear tire, right? They use a radial. He used a slick at the time. But they're actually pretty similar cars if you look at just the way they were built.
So you think those guys are holding the torch for the 2J right now?
I don't know if they're holding the torch. I think they've done a fantastic job. Truth be told, Natty has when they were racing a ton, he's got the record. He's got the mile an hour record. He's got the ET record. He's done it at two different tracks, two different years. He's done that, so he's gone fast. They won a bunch of races when they raced last year before they set the record. So I feel like, Natty's the car
100%
to beat. Unfortunately,
as far as a team, I mean,
they have like I said, they got a great program, but they don't have one of these. And by that, I mean this chair that I'm sitting in right now.
I'm looking down like, wait, what are you talking about?
Okay. You get this when you win Sweet 16. Okay. Last time we're at Sweet 16, we took the trophy home for the import guys. Where was White Rice? Nowhere to be found. They qualified.
Damn.
They packed their shit up and went home. Suck that up for a little bit, okay? They packed their shit up and went home before eliminations, okay? Why? They had reliability issues with the motors. Now, they've learned a lot.
Okay.
They still haven't learned as much as I've forgotten. Okay?
Damn. It's spicy over here.
Okay? But they packed their shit up and went home.
Who's building their motors?
I'm not sure. I know they put them together. I mean, listen, it's not all about how they build the motors. It's also about the tuning. It's about the whole package.
100%. No, you said they had reliability issues.
How to run it. I mean, it could be
other things,
right? So, but look, if I was in eliminations at one of the biggest races, I would have at least walked over and been like, yo, can I borrow an engine? Ooh. Right? I would have done whatever I had to do. I mean, we're 3 hours from Titan. I would have had my guys drive any part, any engine up that they needed because they're part of our 2JZ culture.
Right.
And got them so that they could have made eliminations. They chose to tuck their tail behind their legs and go home. But what I'm trying to tell you is, do you want them representing the 2JZ? They're a fantastic team, but do they hold a torch to Natty?
No, of course not. Natty's king right now, right? Of course.
So Natty's the king. So who should be racing the 2JZ versus the RB?
Oh, we're going into RB now.
I mean, we know. We know it ain't a. We know it's like picking on children.
I want to see where you're going with this. So I'm flattered, right? Since I have an RB, I'm an RB guy.
Well, listen, you said we need some action. We need something to talk about. And let's talk about it. Of
course. I mean, the 2J RB thing is always going to be a debate, right? But I'm flattered that you brought it up because obviously it shows that like the 2J guys are sweating a little bit, Like,
I don't know about sweating.
There's a little bit of nervous energy
it's
that's
not
coming
sweating.
up.
As a person who's made his career, his name off of trying to move the 2JZ to the top of the
100%. We got to give much
field.
Respect to the Copper Supra.
I want to see the best representing us.
Okay.
In the 2JZ field.
Okay. So you want to see the best representing the 2J to beat the RB because you guys are nervous that the RB
We're not
probably.
Nervous.
No, it just seems like there's nervous energy. I don't know.
But
I see a lot of stuff going on social media.
I've seen the reliability issues.
With what? With what?
With the white rice.
Oh, I thought you meant the RB.
With the white rice. Well, I've seen it with the RB too.
The RB's holding up pretty well.
I've seen it with the RB as well.
So
listen, anything can happen, but if you're going to race them, you got to be ready. It doesn't matter if it's a RB, if it's a VQ.
Yeah, that's a fact.
If it's a VR, right. If you're going to put this deal together, we need to have, as a loyal 2JZ guy, I want to see our best.
And white rice and
Natty right now has shown that he has everything to be that guy. Unfortunately, the car has obviously been in an accident.
He's going to make a comeback. He's going to make a comeback.
Ain't nobody
worry about that.
He's going to make a comeback for sure.
He'll make a comeback.
But I'm just saying, we need our best. And right now, Natty's shown to be the best.
Okay, that's fair. That is perfectly fair. But honestly, how you feel about what the RB has done in such a short amount of time for that car? Not just RBs in general. Obviously, it's a platform that's been around for years.
I think, Mac has made great strides. I mean, he's put a program together with the best of the best, okay? Mm-hmm. And that's saying something. I mean, he's put it top to bottom. He's got great tuners, great equipment, brand new car, and he's going to keep getting quicker and quicker. Now,
he's already fastest RB in the world right now.
Now, will he be able to beat a 2JZ? Hell no. Hell no.
How do you have to see that? Listen, the motors are not that far apart, right? There might be some 2J involvement, very depending on how fast you're going, right? But they're not they're pretty similar platforms. They're not that far. They're not that different. Honestly, I think
RB's a good motor. Obviously, there's two icons in the JDM 100%, world, right? The R34 100%. And now in the Supra,
right?
And so obviously those are the two power plants, and it's awesome that we're talking about it. These motors were made 25 years ago, and now they're both very relevant, right? So
super.
I think the RB's got a lot of potential. I think they're gonna keep getting quicker and quicker. I mean, it's shown. Look at the mile an hour.
Yeah.
They've got the team. So again, if you're gonna have the heavyweight fight of the year, we need to have our best in the fight.
You seem to think that White Rice and Saki Bomb, those aren't going to be the guys through the whole torch.
Are they the quickest?
They're not, of course. We know this, right?
Are they the fastest?
No, they're not.
Have they won anything?
I mean, have they?
I don't know. That's what I'm telling you.
Okay. I mean, I guess they haven't. I don't know. I don't know if they won anything. I could be wrong, but
I think you're pretty dialed in.
Okay.
I mean, unless you've been living in an alternate universe.
okay. So these guys are probably going to be, they're going to feel a type of way about you saying this stuff, right? Obviously, there's nothing personal here.
It's like I said, I love the team.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
They've done fantastic.
Nothing personal here. But they're probably going to want to see what you can do since you seem to, obviously you've done some legendary stuff with the Supra, right? But you're talking kind of spicy. You're talking kind of spicy, right?
Yeah.
So they're probably going to say, well, what do you have for us?
I mean, let's be honest. Look at all these trophies behind, okay?
Okay. There's a lot of trophies in here.
There's a lot of things I've forgotten, okay?
Nice wheels over
when
there,
it comes
too.
to racing. There's a lot of things I've forgotten. But one thing I haven't forgotten is how to win. Okay? So, you know what? If they want to set it up, I'll put something together.
You gonna make a comeback?
I'll put it together. You know what? You want the best of the best. The last races of the year, October, November, December.
Wait, you're talking about for 2026?
2026. Because let's be honest, you want to see the best of the RB. It's not going to be January, February. They're going to keep working on their program.
True.
Okay?
True.
If they want to call me out,
But
they want to have a piece, I'll put something together.
But, so it's not going to be this car, though.
No, not this car. It'd be for the pro import. I would put something together, pro import, race Big Mac.
You're racing. Oh,
If
so
the
you're going to go against the
fans-
RB.
if
See,
the
I told you they sweating.
If the
They sweating.
fans want to see the best 2JZ guy race, I'll do it if the fans tell me they want to do it.
But it has to be for 2026, though. Like you got to be
2026.
ready.
2026, I'm gonna get some sponsors from you. You're gonna help me get some sponsors. We're gonna throw some money at it, and
Yeah, no problem.
we'll go find a car laying around somewhere. And
He said, I love when people say that. Like, yeah. Bro, you don't need me to sponsor you, man. Like, I think it's the other way around. So you got a car ready, or
no, I don't have anything. I mean, honestly, Natty was the guy, right? He was running the full Titan driveline. Unfortunately, I know they're planning on repairing the car, but I don't know where they're at in that phase. But, what's important to me is accurate representation.
Okay.
So if you want a winner in the 2JZ camp, I'll throw my hat in the ring.
Okay. Well, wasn't expecting that one. Thought we were going to see this thing, make a comeback. But this car,
we can paint the new car copper, if that's what you'd like to see. Again, whatever the fans want.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
If the fans want to see it, if Big Mac
Copper 2.0 or something.
if Big Mac is down,
No, I think Big Mac will be down to run it.
you think so? He may be scared.
I think honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, right? I don't think any RB is scared of no 2J right now.
I think the
2J guys are
think
sweating.
you are underestimating the 2JZ.
No, there's nothing to underestimate. We know the 2J is amazing. It's already proven its point.
Oh, see, you heard it? You heard it?
No, listen.
We know it's amazing.
No, we know. I know.
We know.
It's amazing. I know. Listen, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be 100% honest. I know I could have put a 2J in my car, and I know I would have had fun, but I just want to be different. That's just my personal thing. But we can't deny that most people in America think that a RB is only good for 800 horsepower, right? That motor's making 3,000 plus horsepower, and it's doing its thing. It's getting these guys talking. When is the last time you've seen an RB race in World Cup or any of these other events?
No, I love, like I said, I love what the Big Mac team's doing. I know a lot of the guys over there.
That's gonna be I don't know, man. That's gonna be a tough one. You're gonna be stressed out.
I mean, you're gonna have to put it together.
Yeah,
you're responsible for this
I'm
whole
just saying,
thing.
You're gonna be stressed out, man. Damn, these RB
Stressed
guys, man,
out.
they too fast. They're
Stressed
too
out.
fast.
I'm just gonna have to go back to my notebook and be like, how do I do this again?
Well, I'll be praying for you, man. Like hopefully
Praying?
everything. Yeah, I want to make sure everything works out for you. So when you're in the process of building this new car, you thinking about the RB in the back of your head.
Let's see. Let's see what the fans want.
I'm talking like I'm racing. I'm the host. I shouldn't even be talking like this.
He's gonna be the host, and next he's gonna be the promoter.
if y'all want to see Nero put the car together, right? This car that he doesn't have yet.
Don't have yet. Put a car together.
Or put a car together.
To compete.
Let us know down below in the comments. I don't know. It's been quite some time, man.
It's not been that long.
It's been quite some time.
It's not been that long.
I'm not down you. You're still involved in, obviously, you're involved in the fastest Supra.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously there's still, you know this. This is what you do, you know.
I mean, I love the sport, right? And I want to see the sport grow. And I think adding the diversity of the different engines into the class has been fantastic, right? You know, the rotaries for a little while were racing now. The rotaries are doing fantastic against the four cylinders. So, you know, for the pro import category, the RB has obviously shown to have a lot of promise.
Yeah. What is it about your 2JZ package, right? that is like that makes it as great as it is.
You know, honestly, having developed the 2JZ over, you know, multiple decades, the platform is honestly phenomenal out of the box.
100%, yeah.
That's why 2J, LS, they're both great packages.
Right.
Every engine, whether it's, I mean, 2J, you know, the V10, the VR, they all have some issues, some weakness that has to be fixed, right? Something that just makes it better, some machining that fixes issues, whether it's head gasket or head gasket combination. Figuring all that out then gets you to the point where you can sell somebody something reliable.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great builders for 2JZs. Over the years, what made the 2JZ continue to get better and better developed is a lot of the teams worked with each other. Whether companies work with each other, like let's just say when we were doing half-inch head studs, right, on 2JZ. We made half-inch custom head studs for the 2JZ, and they were available. We sold them to everybody. We didn't hoard it. We didn't keep it secret. Here, this is what works. This is what we have. If you have something you like different, you can do your own thing. But this is what we've tested in our copper car and then Ekanoo's car. And it's available. That's how we got, you know, to the billet block. When we started breaking blocks all the time in the Ekanoo program, the billet block became
I think Shane T had mentioned that actually in the podcast.
It became something that went from like something we kind of wanted to something you had to have. Right? We were breaking blocks, cracking sleeves. Plus, you shed 40 to 50 pounds off of the car, another benefit. And you built your reliability. So we could have kept Ekanoo could have kept the blocks and said, hey, nobody can have it. It's just ours. We made it available to everybody. So, you know, working with other teams, building parts, you know, like some parts, there's a cost to it, right? Like there's cost of engineering. If you're only going to keep it and like build 5 for yourself, it doesn't make financial sense. But when you can make 50 and accrue the R&D over those 50, it makes it available to everybody. It helps everybody. And so the platform can continue to go quicker and quicker. So at some point, Natty's record will fall and it could be another team. And then hopefully they're continue to progress, and then it'll fall again. That's what keeps the sport migrating forward.
So is there anything in this car specifically, or even Ekanoo's car, that, I don't want to say you guys gate kept or anything, but you can be honest. You don't have to say what it is, but is there anything in this engine setup that's only specific to these cars?
Nope.
So what is in this car you can buy and have the same setup, exactly. Nothing different.
Nothing different.
No secret or anything.
No secret. And you know what? I've told people many times at the racetrack, after winning a race, you want the engine, my guys will pull it out and say, I'll sell it to you. Bring me the money. I mean, hell, you know, if you want the spare engine at the racetrack, I'll sell it to you. I mean, there's secrets in it, right? There's a way you put it together, but all those parts are available through our website, through our staff. Or you can buy the whole thing turnkey, ready to go.
Now, you mentioned there's secrets in it. would it have to be built? So anybody could buy parts, right? But you have to know how to put things together.
Yeah.
So I guess that's more of the
It's kind of this, that's the massaging, right?
Okay.
Like how you put it together. And a lot of it is in tuning too. Like,
I think,
obviously.
100%. That's why I said more mechanically rather than the tuning is going to be relative. So.
Multiple teams have used our engines and they've all run different times. That's because they're running the cars differently.
Okay.
The cars themselves are different. The clutch, the gearing, the rear ends, the tire size.
Right.
So many pieces factor into it.
And have you guys done anything with the dart block yet, or?
We've done some assemblies with it.
Okay.
Obviously it's a lot heavier than an aluminum block because they've added actually even more cast iron. But it's a great interim piece as far as like you want something to make power, be reliable, brand new block. Even you can go to a bigger bore if you wanted.
Okay.
So it's a great interim piece between a factory cast iron block and a billet block. I feel it fits like
right in between.
Right in between.
You can't daily drive a billet block?
You
Even
could,
if you have running water through it, of course?
You could with the water. We actually have our own water block.
Okay.
And so does Bullet, so does MazWorks. So you could run one of those. I don't know how many people have actually dailied it versus done like more like drag and drive.
Yeah. Because I'm always curious about that. A lot of people, even on the RB side, same thing. The billet block thing is just, it seems to be a thing where like I don't really see people who actually really daily drive them. Like they say you can, but like I haven't ran into anybody who's actually daily driving in their car.
I'll be honest, I don't think anybody who has these cars, if it's a really nice car and they put that much effort into it, really want to daily drive it. They don't want to park it random places. They don't want people door dinging it.
Yeah.
They don't want something happening to it on their daily commute.
It's just not a common thing.
It's just not a common thing. I think these cars have become too collector like for the owners and for like people out there that they just don't want to take that risk. It's one of those things you don't want to leave your jewelry just sitting on the counter.
True, that's true. So do you still do like regular? That's crazy to say regular, but do you still do like less than 1,000 horsepower 2J stuff, or are you only doing like high horsepower stuff?
Yeah, no, I'll be honest. The most popular stuff right now is 600 to 800 horsepower.
Really?
Maybe 600 to 1,000. Yeah, streetability, 600 to 700 horsepower is fantastic.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, for the street. Depending on the weight of the car, but I think that's fun.
That's the core of our distribution is there. The thing is like our billet blocks, our race cars, those are all signature pieces. That just shows that, hey, we've pushed the limits of all of this stuff, but like the core of what we sell is going to be 600 to 1,000 horsepower. Like I tell people, people always want 1,200, 14, 16. I was like, don't even.
It's just for the number for some people.
I'm like, if you're trying to actually drive the car a lot, go and have fun, and not go to the drag strip.
Yeah,
go smaller.
Like less horsepower, or you can build something to handle that. But then
you can build something.
Lower.
The sweet spot there is usually 800 to 1,000. I feel
on the street
is fantastic.
Rear wheel drive.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. All wheel drive would probably be a little bit more, obviously, because you're putting the power down. But for a rear wheel drive Supra,
all wheel drive. Now, if you're talking if you're talking 2JZ, but if you're talking, let's say V10, then I would say go 1,000. I feel is like almost the minimum because it works, right? 800 is like a great number to drive around in. If you have a good tire on a V10, like an R8, you can make 1,000 to 1,500. So
now, there's other people who do 2Js. I know Jay does 2Js as well. He uses MazWorks. Are you guys using MazWorks for your machine?
Not on the 2JZ platform. We have a couple of builders that do our machine work for 2JZs, and also a different person for the heads. And we cater the pack. We actually sell short block packages, just rotating assemblies, or complete long blocks.
Okay.
So whatever the customer wants. Most of the time, most of our customers usually choose to put it together themselves. Okay. Either by buying the short block and the cylinder head and then marrying it assembled. Or just buying the components and having their own local machine shop do it. There's a lot of great machine shops. It's funny, 20 years ago, you couldn't find anybody who knew anything about a 2JZ.
Yeah.
I've talked to machine shops that don't really do anything sport compact, and they're like, oh yeah, we've put two JZ motors together. Like it's common now. So depending on, where you're located, if you're overseas, from a shipping standpoint, it's better to have a local machine shop
Right.
put together parts and just, buy the rotating assembly from us and put it together there.
Now, is it, since the 2J is obviously a reliable platform, is it one of those platforms, even with the amount of advancement that we've had with it, that you can easily mess up even in the machining process or even putting it together? I mean, it's pretty much standard to do things the right way, but...
It's pretty funny. I think if you asked me that question, I'd say, yeah, it's hard to mess up. You ask Jay that question, he would tell you it's easy to screw it up. So, the baseline is you got to have obviously somebody who's competent, who's a good engine builder, period, right? If they're messing up LSs and small block Chevys, then they're going to mess up a 2JZ, right?
Okay.
But if you're following the right recipe, and a lot of the information is online, you're making sure you bore the block correctly, you hone it correctly, you clean it out so there's no metal left over after you've done all your machine work, all your what I would call your basics.
Yeah.
Then it should go together correctly. I mean, we sell thousands of parts all over the world, and sure, people put together stuff wrong. But a majority of people put them together and they work great.
So now, you said 800 is probably like where a street car for a 2J would be kind of like a sweet spot for the most part, right? You're not really getting into any issues with that kind of horsepower, right? If you're building an engine from here, of course not. What about the guys who are not getting an engine built, and those guys who are doing stuff in their garage? They're picking up like I don't know, like a GE block or something like that, or...
I mean, honestly, like as long as they're putting good components in, I think a guy can put a 2JZ together in the garage and do a very good job of it. I've seen it by many people. It is also what Jay kind of preaches, which is being meticulous and looking at the details. If you're looking at all those details, you'll put together a great short block. Most of the components are all OEM. Like, right, you're going to use a factory oil pump, factory water pump, or a Messier water pump. That's an OEM type of replacement. You're going to use stock size head studs. You're going to, everything is somewhat OEM.
So you use stock head studs on the 2J.
You use a stock size head stud.
Okay.
Because it comes originally with head bolts, but you do use a stock size, so you don't have to do. There's no machining. The machine's only there if you're doing half inch, right? So like for an 800 horsepower motor, all the components are pretty like OEM plus.
Oh wait, so you guys go to half inch studs once you get up past 800, or is it just something you do just because?
Usually, I say past 1,000 or past 1,200. You do for a half inch head stud, which you can machine into an OEM block, which is like what we did, like with Ekanoo's motors and all the race motors when they were cast iron. That's what you had to do. It was machine the head studs out for half inch. Now you can buy a dart block with half inch head studs.
Well, those blocks already come like machined for that. Like when you order them, do they have the option to do half inch already from how they built?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So
you do have to machine the cylinder head to fit the half inch head stud.
Oh, true. Because the cylinder head is still obviously factory. So aside from that, just the studs, what are you doing machine wise to kind of like advance the amount of power you can make on it? I
mean, if you're going to cross, let's say 1,000 horsepower, you do need to do billet main caps. So again, having a machine shop that is able to line bore a block, that becomes important, right? So if you're building something for 800 horsepower, you could do, and you're doing stock main caps, then you don't even have to line bore it.
Let's say I have a 240, an S14 or something that I want to put a 2JZ in. For 1,000 horsepower, how much would that cost me to put that in that car?
I would say $15,000 gets you pretty far.
Okay, that's just for the engine itself. And that
for building it, yeah.
Now, is that from Titan, of course?
Yeah, we like I said, we have a lot of various packages. So we got built 3 liter, built 3.4 liters.
And is there a big variance in price between a 3-liter to a 3.4?
And the biggest core cost difference is the crankshaft. That's really all the other components are the same.
Okay.
So you can use an OEM crankshaft. So if you already have like a motor with a good crank, you can use an OEM crankshaft that's a 3-liter.
Okay.
To go to the 3.4, you need to do a billet crankshaft. Right now, that's approximately $3,500.
So $15,000 will get you a 1,000 horsepower 2JZ up until how much power?
Well, you said 1,000 horsepower, but
yeah, but like normally you're not building it for 1,000, right?
So the biggest thing once you have billet main caps on a 2JZ,
okay,
the biggest thing as far as reliability becomes the cylinder liner, whether you would crack one or crack by a head stud hole, crack the block itself. So that's where going with the smallest bore that you can gives you that extra amount of material,
right,
to give you a little bit extra amount of like security.
So one thing that we also do, or I also did, it's pretty common, is half fill the blocks as well for extra rigidity. Is that something that you guys do when you're over 1,000, or is that even a thing you guys do at all?
I would like to do that usually over 1,200, and also that limits your street use.
Because of the water.
Because of the water. I mean, the concrete in the bottom half of the block is an insulator, so it's not great for oil temps in long range use.
Right, and long range use is like a
we're saying if you're going to
car and
we're talking about if you're trying to drive the car for 30 minutes or 45 minutes straight, or more, then you're starting to get into a little bit longer range use, right?
Yeah.
If you're driving down 10 minutes down the road and that's it, then that's not really you're not heating up.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. I know there's people who drove a long time with their RBs.
Yep.
And they haven't really had any issues, but again, it's really tough to say who's really daily driving these cars, because like you said, like a lot of people don't want to have their cars out in the street so much. The more you drive your car, the more susceptible it is to getting into an accident or something like that. Some stupid shit, right? So aside from that, there's nothing else that you would have to do in order to have a 1,000 horsepower 2JZ reliably.
Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious, but it's as simple as that. I mean, the biggest thing is like the main caps will or can start to crack at 850. Now,
the stock ones.
Now, people are like, oh no, they'll make 1,200, they'll make 1,000. Sure, they will until they crack. So if I don't want to sell you something and then be like, okay, the motor needs to come out, a month later or a year later if it didn't have to. Right. So like to give you extra security, I mean at 850, if you put billet main caps, problem solved.
Damn. Okay.
Past that 1,200 is when you can start to, get into block cracking issues. And that number could go 1,200 to 1,600, 1,800. I mean, we've done it. We've done it in this car. We've done it in a lot of other cars. And we do it until the block cracks, right? So people are like, my motor lasted 2 years. Well, yeah, I mean, it did. And then some people, it'll last one race.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it kind of circles back to we are trying to give you reliability, right? So some of that reliability requires education.
Yeah.
But, if you have the information, you're willing to take that risk, then, I mean, that's fine.
Is it hard to find 2J blocks nowadays?
No, it's been, I think between the IS300s and probably some SE300s and JDM imports, I think there's been a pretty good, availability on blocks. Surprisingly, it's not been like the RB where the motors are extremely hard to find, extremely expensive to get. So, plus now with the dart block being available, there's even more used stuff kind of floating around.
The cores that are no good, is there anything you can do with them?
It's funny because right now we probably throw them away, and you could technically sleeve it, but realistically, they're so cheap that you would just toss it and get a new one. Now, I guarantee you that was the same case with RB blocks, and people probably throw 20, 30, 50 of them away, and they wish they had them now, because even a crappy RB block is worth over $1,000.
the RB stuff is ridiculous. The way that people are taxing for all these parts. You know how much valve covers are for RB26?
How much?
On the cheap end, on the very, very bare minimum, $1,500. You're not getting any cheaper than that. I've seen $2,500. When I was looking for mine, hard to find, and that's what they were going for. Ridiculous. For valve covers.
Yep.
Doesn't make any sense. So a block, I think the prices were like $6,500 for a block.
So with the 2JZ, that's the nice thing is if you have a block that is basically marginal, you can throw it away and buy a new one.
Oh, 100%.
It's cost effective enough to do that.
And I think that's why it has proven to be, not even that. I think it's just more people have had it here. It's a platform that obviously you guys have R&D for years, and it's proven to work and be reliable because more people have had access to it, and there's more people involved, so that way they can figure out if this works and be the most reliable platform, right?
Yep.
So I want to switch gears a bit and pretty much talk about your business and how you guys operate here, right? Obviously, most people think that you're just a performance shop, but this is really primarily a parts business.
Yep.
And that's what really funds a lot of the things that you were able to do back in the day, leading up to the Copper Supra, right? So I did a podcast with Sissio about a year ago, and one of the biggest conversations, well, one of the one I took away from that was the performance shops. Now, he mentioned that performance shops don't make money, right? So the way that you're operating your business is parts first, then car is obviously the hobby, and that's parts business is what's funding this.
Yep.
So is that true that performance shops don't make money? And I mean money where you can go and do this kind of stuff and live a lavish lifestyle for the most part.
So, I would say that's somewhat correct and also incorrect. And
Okay.
I'll say, at Titan, our racing and our shop is obviously kind of more of an accessory to our core business. So because of that, if, we are a little bit selective about the cars that we take on, but then if that car needs something, extra couple hours of labor, we may not bill for it. We want all the cars to leave at a high caliber.
Okay.
And the customers to be happy about it because it's a representation of our brand, right? It's not our number one profit center. Our shop also is kind of our R&D center, for new development and new parts that we develop. So like that year, that development of a part doesn't necessarily translate to profit for that division that works on the cars, but it benefits Titan overall. But can shops be successful and make money? Yes, 100%.
Performance shops.
Performance shops. Obviously Sissio has multiple locations and has been successful, in expanding. You have your underground racing who builds some of the most high-end, highest dollar builds, and they just build cars.
But that's like they're doing like
okay,
Lamborghinis
so that's an anomaly. But let me give you another one. And he's a good buddy of mine, Kenny Tran from Joe Tech.
Okay,
He's been in business 30 years. He's a true survivor in the industry. A pioneer in the industry. And, he's not a parts distributor. Owns a shop. And if you see, he's at Texas 2K and he races a Lamborghini himself. He has his own McLarens. His wife has a GTR. He really is embedded himself in the industry, but has become successful because of it. T1, Tony Paulo. I know he has Injector Dynamics, but before Injector Dynamics, he was a shop, only a shop, and now Injector Dynamics is part of his business, but the other part of his business is his shop, and he runs his shop very strict as a business, and it's very successful.
So you think that most of these people are, and I'm not insinuating anything, but you think that most of these people are only doing performance. They don't have any other business that they're doing. That's their core business. Now, there's plenty of business owners that, have expanded into other lines. And obviously T1 Race, they started off working on cars and, he primarily doing fabrication. And then it spawned into doing more tuning. And then it's, Injector Dynamics, that partnership started. So it obviously has evolved. But if you were to look at,
some of these businesses that I named, like they stand on their own as a performance shop. Those are some of your larger ones. So, there's plenty of small ones that also do very well. I mean, us as a distributor, we see it, right? So
right, because they're ordering the parts and stuff.
They're ordering the parts. I mean, some of these businesses wouldn't be ordering parts for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years and building cars only if they weren't successful. Now, do those owners work their ass off? Yes. Do they stay up late to finish jobs? Yes. Do they probably hold harder to deadlines than, shops that aren't financially dependent? Yeah, 100%. They have to, right? Because the rent is due every month, the electric bills due every month, and so they have to turn and burn, cars.
Smaller businesses, like you said, if they're doing like Hondas and stuff, how are you making money on building a Honda?
I mean, the biggest thing is, do they manage their business well?
But like, realistically, right? How much money are you making on a Honda build coming in, and how long is that Honda going to take to build?
Well, I mean, again, if they're managing their time, they're managing their business, in that realm, most of the time, the owner is usually the head technician and usually the head tuner, right? So they're involved in that division, that department all the time. So they're not sitting there talking on the Facebook all day. They're making sure the cars are getting done. And when it's like, okay, we didn't get far enough on this project today, they stay late.
Interesting. Yeah, I've always been curious about that because I feel like the margins are much slimmer when you're doing like, you name T1, AMS. These guys are doing like high-end builds. And of course, there's probably larger margin there because people are spending a lot of money. They're probably spending a lot of money with Hondas too, but I kind of feel like you can tax a little bit more just because it's a GTR or if it's a Lambo, That's UGR. I'm sure they have their fees, especially to show up at the races.
Sure.
And people are paying for those events to be there and have UGR like work on their cars. So they're already making money at the events, not only building the car, but they're making money at the events.
Well, look at another survivor, Vinny 10,
Is Vinny still racing?
Vinny, I mean, he's not racing currently,
okay,
but he's still operating his shop with his staff. They're open, like normal business hours. And, he's been doing it for also, I think, 30 plus years, right? So
yeah, he's...
you're saying, is it hard? Yes, it is hard. But any business is hard. I've got all kinds of problems at Titan Motorsports, okay, on a constant basis. And, we don't need to make necessarily money in that division, but I need to make money in the other division.
Right.
So what it boils down to is what can I focus my time on that benefits the business as a whole the most? The young generation, they have to find their niche. And, the thing with running a shop is when you take on a client, you're married to that client. So, so you need to do your due diligence on who you're going to be working with. Is the client going to pay? Is he going to pay on time? Or is it going to end up turning into a big mess? You have more money out in the car than the customer's being willing to pay for. Sometimes that's the shop owner's fault because they didn't collect their deposits. If they built a system to run their shop and run their business and everything has to work in that system, they can be extremely successful.
How much money can a parts business really make in the automotive space?
Margins will typically be, and it all depends, because we're a blended business, right? So we're doing retail and we're doing wholesale. So, but margins, most companies will try to make 17 to 25% selling margin on parts retail.
Okay. Cool.
So if you're asking, can you make millions? Yeah, but you got to sell millions and millions.
So you're selling millions and millions of dollars.
I mean, you've seen the warehouse.
How much is that parts the machine
the machine that just stores the parts is $200,000.
Oh, it's $200,000. I thought it was more than that.
Well, that was when I bought it, so it may be a little more. I mean, that was a couple.
$200,000.
That was 3 years ago.
Put that in my backyard. That's it. $200,000.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought it was
it.
like $1 million machine.
Yeah. No.
Wow. Okay. So several M's we talking? Like maybe like 10 mil, you know?
10 mil what of revenue? That's not going to get you very far with 30 plus employees. If I wanted to be in a different industry that was all money driven, I would probably stayed in IT. And
Okay.
at the time, I would have been into it. And even now, I mean, as hard as I work,
Yeah.
and I think some of the team building skills that I've learned over the years, I mean, I would be managing a sizable, company or network or being a CTO. I think I would be making a lot more money than I am now, but I would not have had anywhere amount of fun or the ride so far of having fun. So, a lot of people lose interest in what they do in the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very passionate about the industry, as you can tell. I mean, I think it's in a great location, great business. I think it's going to continue to grow. We're really coming into like a whole new era of turbocharged, drag racing. So I'm just more concerned about I'm less concerned about my financial well-being on some of that than making sure I'm having fun and making sure everything's just going the right direction.
So, want to switch gears, right? In 2018, there was an incident where there was a customer that had his car here, and that car ended up getting crashed, right? So it was a big deal, apparently. It was on the news and so on. I'm pretty sure the guy probably complained about it, of course, because he was pretty upset.
Of course.
So what is your take on that? Because I don't think anybody's heard your side of this story.
So, it's unfortunate that, the accident happened with the Audi. Fortunately, I mean, it did take 4 or 5 years, but that did get settled to both of our mutual satisfaction. But basically, one of our employees who's no longer with us was driving the Audi and taking a legal turn and got sideswiped. And unfortunately, that happened right around the end of the day on a Friday. And before we had any chance of settling it, or trying to, make it right for the customer, the customer had already gone to the news and it was already out there in the public and on the news. So as that, migrated over time, there was no easy way to resolve it because, I feel I was being taken advantage of.
Okay.
And by, the team at Titan really has the best wishes of our customers at heart. And, we're still a small business, and, when we're willing to, take, money out of our pocket, food off the table, so to speak. But when somebody tries to take advantage of you and asks you for 3 times what, vehicle's worth, tries to make you pay it, obviously, your insurance isn't going to cover that. There's no easy way to resolve it. So, unfortunately, I had to go to, through some of the court system. And again, it did take 4+ years to resolve it to our satisfaction. But, it got done, and obviously, whether it's a small business like ourselves or insurance, they're not just going to, pay more than what something's, worth. And, it was tough time, having to deal with that on a personal level.
So how has that affected your business? Even right after the incident happened up until today?
For the first 10 days, we were getting a lot of those nasty calls, from, your typical random online people. But after that settled down, I mean, business was kind of back to normal. But, still to this day, we've had negative Google reviews. We've had, people, with bots with negative Google reviews, which are obviously, unfounded, saying that, we weren't willing to take care of it. And, we wanted to take care of it.
So when the incident happened, did Did you exchange words with this person at all, you personally?
I did, but I think, because it happened, like I said, like a Friday night, then the car was brought back to Titan really late at night because it took 3+ hours for the police to show up. I think by the time Monday came and we started to talk about things, I think, maybe it was too late because like I said, it was already like on its way to the news being published.
Wait, so you waited. So the incident happened, of course, the cops and everybody was there. I'm not sure if you guys came to an agreement that you guys would speak about it on Monday because it was Friday night.
Yep.
But by Monday, it was already on the news.
I think on Wednesday, I think the news published it.
Okay.
But we, hadn't, there wasn't a ton of communication.
So you don't even know that this person went to the news to speak about the situation.
I don't know when exactly he went to the news, but I know like they were.
No, I'm saying, but you didn't know, of course, that this
Correct.
person went to the news.
Correct.
And said all these things or whatever it was. Yeah. Meanwhile, you guys didn't even have any agreement on anything yet as far as what you were going to do with the car.
No, we hadn't even really formulated a game plan or anything.
Okay. So I'm just trying to, in my head, because if this happened to me, if I'm at Titan or any other shop, and this happens while I'm there, of course, I'm going to be like, well, how are we going to take care of this, right?
Yep.
So obviously, you guys had some sort of agreement, and if you tell me, oh, well, this is let's it's Friday, let's leave the car here.
There's a process, right? You have to go through your insurance, you have to go through the protocols. I mean, unfortunately, there was another vehicle that was also involved, that hit the car, so you couldn't just start fixing it.
Yeah, because you were still obviously dealing with that situation with the cops and insurance and so on. So. But you did offer something to this person in order to...
Yeah, I mean, I thought made it very clear that we wanted to, make this right and, sort the problem out, obviously. We weren't trying to leave, the guy hanging. We had the car here stored at our facility.
Right. And then this person had said to you that they wanted this amount of money, and then that's when kind of, things took a turn.
Yep.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, we're still a small business. We can't just just pay 3 times what something's worth. We could, we were willing to help purchase a new vehicle, switch any of the mods over, which was just basic stuff, and make the customer happy. But I think there was no easy resolution.
Now, you mentioned small business, right? And this is a very touchy topic, but people would think that Titan's not a small business. You're coming into this facility. We did a shop tour, of course. It's a massive facility. You guys do a lot of money in sales and so on. So what would you consider small business technically for those people who may look at that and say you're not a small business?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, Titan, mind you, this was 7 years ago, was a fraction of the size that it is today. Mm-hmm. We're a small business, so we're family-owned business, and we, have employees, right? So, there's no reason that our people should suffer, for an accident,
right?
For literally, I mean, that's the whole reason there's insurance. I mean, this type of thing happens on a common basis. There's no reason to. I felt, go to the news and basically, steer the, topic one direction, as I hadn't really talked about it before because as a courtesy, my staff didn't want me to talk about it. I can definitely be a little bit more hot-headed and tell you, how I really feel about it. But, out of the benefit of them, because they had to deal with this problem, dealing with it on the phones, dealing with people, twisting the story.
Now, with this car, because I don't really know much about that car specifically, but that car, was it a lot of money into that car, like as far as what you guys did to it, or? No,
I think there was probably like $3,000 worth of mods. It was all basic stuff.
So it wasn't like a built engine, or not that it matters.
No, it was about a day's worth of work.
Okay, so this is a car that wasn't like a car that was a fast, high-performance street car or anything like that.
No.
So in this accident, obviously there was no speeding or anything that was happening. The car was just at a stoplight or something like that.
Yeah, it was actually taking a turn.
I was taking a turn.
Yep.
Okay.
That's when it got sideswiped.
Okay, so in this turn, was this like a legal turn, like, or was something that?
Yeah. Though there was entered in a basically what do you call it, like a driveway, I believe, and it was coming out and there was construction, so that's why there was a lot of stop traffic, and a car actually went against traffic and hit it.
Oh wow, damn. Okay, well, for those people, I mean, obviously you're getting.
And fortunately, nobody in the end, nobody was hurt. So, on either side. So that was like, honestly, I felt like the most important thing.
Yeah, of course. When it comes to like this kind of situation, it's obviously very sensitive, right? But your Google reviews, obviously, you can't really remove those, right?
No, I mean, you can try to remove the fraudulent ones, but you can't. There's, unfortunately, if you look at Google, you don't have to be a consumer to actually post a review. Where if you look at, let's say, eBay, you had to actually purchase something and had actual experience.
That sucks, man. I think because I've heard about the Google thing. I know there's companies that are affected by that when they have situations like this. And of course, people get a hold of this problem. And then next thing you know, they're just like bashing the company. And unfortunately, you don't really get to say your side of the story.
Yep.
But this is the first time you're speaking about it publicly, I'm sure, right?
Yes, it is.
Right. So I'm glad you spoke about it, of course. You seem to have tried to fix the situation. It just didn't go.
Yeah. And then, I mean, like I said, fortunately, now, years later, it is resolved, to both of our mutual satisfaction. So, I mean, it ended up, working out. Like I said, nobody got hurt, and
awesome.
And we've moved forward.
So what is 2026 looking like for Titan Motorsports? Aside from you putting together a car that we don't even know about yet.
That doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist, and the RB's going to beat. What else
No, it's not going to beat. It's not going to beat.
What else is happening?
maybe we'll let him win one. Maybe we'll let him run.
I don't know.
You think I should give him the rear tire?
I don't know, man. I think you guys are sweating.
They may
over this
need
guy.
the rear tire. Let him stage with the rear. Let him stage one time with the rear tire.
You can say that to him on camera. You can tell him.
He knows. He knows. If he needs,
talking spicy,
listen, Mac. If you need the stage with the rear tire, we'll give you one.
And then what happens if once? Well,
if he needs it, he needs it.
Aside from you getting smoked by RBs in 2026,
yes.
What else is happening for Titan?
We're going to continue to focus on, honestly, like just trying to build a better customer experience. We're continuing to work on like some of our internal IT systems to accomplish that.
Any new builds you guys are working on this year? You sold the Supra, the white one, right?
Yep, we did sell the white one. It's will be official here soon, so probably from this podcast. But
oh damn! Oh well, this ain't gonna come out until like Saturday.
Yeah,
Sunday.
This Sunday?
Yeah, this Sunday.
Yeah, so now we haven't officially announced. I guess I'll announce it next week.
All right, well I'll take it out then. That's cool.
No, we can. I mean, if you want to talk about it. So yep, we sold that car. It's going to Guyana.
Oh really?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
It should be shipping here soon. And then our goal is to build another A90 that's going to be like more drag specific.
Like gutted, completely gutted?
Yep.
Like full-on race car?
Full-on race car, yeah. I mean, the thing is that car truly is a street car. It's like
the white Supra.
It's got AC, it's got the factory power steering in it. It's got a 4-point roll bar. It's literally, you can drive it on the street everywhere like a normal car. So I think we were getting kind of to that limit, where they're going like 770s of what it's capable of as a street car. And we didn't want to completely cut it apart or gut it. We felt like if we're going to build something to try to go to the area of low sevens and then likely to the sixes, which I feel is the future of that platform, you needed to build a purpose-built car that's obviously built to be safe.
You think sixes are in the future for the B58?
Yeah, I mean, I know 750s are kind of like we're already there. Before you know it, that's 730s, and every time that platform has a leap, some improvement, it's about 0.2. So every time we're maybe a couple of years away, but it's on its way there. You know, we've seen it with the Supras, you know, with so many different people, you know, going sevens was huge.
Yeah.
And then once it went sevens, like so many people got down to, oh, my car's going 720s. Oh, just a bigger turbo and I can go 690s, right? Or I'm very close.
You think it's the bigger turbo that's going to get this car into the
I
sixes?
think a lot of the standalone engine development and transmission development will be huge. The cars, you know, yielding quicker, a little bit better and better 60 foots, people continuing to work on it. And yeah, I mean, the cars making a little bit more power always is going to help.
Interesting. Well, I'm curious to see how the B58 does this year and the following year and the year after that. What else do you have that is coming up in the future aside from the Supra?
Kind of as it is. I mean, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. You know,
No, that's good. That's good.
I do spend a lot of time, you know, with my family. So I'm not like at the racetrack every weekend like I used to be. But, you know, I mean, work is important, but it's going the right trajectory. Like I'm really pleased as to where the industry is going, and I think it can continue to grow. I mean, you know, people such as yourself has helped that quite a bit, actually. I don't think people give you enough credit for what you've done for the industry.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
You know, I mean, you're taking the effort to go out and show people things behind the scenes that they've never seen before. Understand who the people are in the industry, understand how people got to where they are in the industry. You know, for the next generation to follow, they need to learn, you know, how it was got there where they're at and how to continue to move forward, you know, and that requires education. And honestly, a lot of the young people don't have those resources. Maybe they're scared to reach out.
Yeah.
They don't have accessibility to some of these business owners that you have put on, such as like Tony, such as Sissio.
Yeah.
You know, so such as Shane T. So, you know, you're doing, you know, a fantastic job of like,
thank you.
You know, getting the word out, and that helps the whole industry grow.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that was basically the reason why all this started, is because I didn't think I'd be able to have conversations with people like yourself, Tony, and those guys.
I mean, you've even shown people what not to do, you know, such as using the RB.
Yeah, I didn't know you was going to go there with that. That was good. That was good. All right. So for those guys who are who are building a car in a garage, or maybe, you know, they started building cars, working on cars, their friends' cars, and they progressed that into like an actual business, right? What would you say to those guys? You know, maybe a piece of advice for those guys. That way they can become successful like yourself. I
mean, I would tell you, you know, like if you love building the cars, get your group of friends together that you love working on the cars with. And, you know, it sucks because some of them will, you know, give up, phase out, not be into it anymore. But you'll build a core group of people, hopefully, that you're like building your car with, helping you build your car, you're helping build their cars. I mean, that's how I got started. And those life experiences are like immeasurable, right? Like you can make more money doing something else or whatever, but you'll never like have as much fun doing like what I did, you know, and that's why I still love getting the sport. That's why it still, you know, makes me excited to come to work. You know, is like those relationships that you built, and those relationships that I've built through my career, like with friends that are in cars, is like still some of the best friends, like for the last 20 years, 30 years, you know, and that's like when we still get together, we're like, oh, remember like when we were doing this or when you did that stupid whatever. And yeah, that's what, like, I want to have more of those, right? So that's why I want to go racing again, you know, in a few years, in next year, and
do your thing
and do my thing.
Well said. Well said. I do want to say thank you for your time. This podcast is a bit different for me because normally I'm more of more neutral, right? I never really speak on my opinion most of the time, and I do a pretty good job, I think, at staying neutral. But we obviously know each other prior to the podcast, and we honestly talk like friends. So hope this podcast wasn't too, I don't know, like out of character for most people what they see. I'm pretty comfortable, so that's why I was able to talk with you about the RB stuff.
I apologize if you weren't able to handle the heat.
No. I'm good. I just don't want people thinking that like I'm bashing or disrespecting you by talking the way I'm talking with you. So you know how people are. That's all.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for the hospitality, for the shop tour as well. We will be doing some stuff with the Supra here in the future, maybe in the next few months actually. So guys, be on the lookout for that. But if people want to work with Titan Motorsports, right?
Yep.
How do they reach out to you?
Just go to the website. I mean, all our contact info's on there. Thousands of products that we sell are on there. Obviously our social media, we have plenty of content, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. So yeah, I mean, you can reach out any of those ways. I mean, the easiest way is through the website. There's multiple, contact forms on there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Nero. Really appreciate it. Had a great conversation and a fun one. We will be looking out for the Supra that you decide to build to beat the RB, right? So guys, if you guys want to see this car be built, drop a comment down below and let Nero know that he has to get it done before World Cup, right?
Yep.
Awesome. So if you guys listening and watching, make sure you guys continue to keep listening and watching. And also make sure you head over to streetalpha.co to copy merch. That's pretty much it. Till next time, guys. Peace.